Chapter 40:15. Of course, it was not hard to understand why the Five Elements Pharmacy did not go all out this time. However, the wealthy families and the Wantong Grand Festival were trying their best to crush the Hong Chamber of Commerce this time. This time, they had definitely made full preparations beforehand. However, even if they added all of them together, the number of top-grade elixirs was only a fraction of what the Hong Chamber of Commerce had. This really made people speechless. Shopkeeper Hong. It seems that not only will the Hong Chamber of Commerce not fail miserably this time, but it will also shine brightly. After making such a great contribution, I believe that after this, your position in the Hong Chamber of Commerce will be promoted. This is really worthy of celebration. Housekeeper Song congratulated Shopkeeper Hong in front of everyone. Not at all. The auction hasn't started yet. Housekeeper Song's words might be overpraising me. Hong Zhong smiled humbly. That being said, any normal person would know that top-grade elixirs were strategic resources that would never be auctioned off. Even if the auction had yet to start, just the fact that there were more than 100 top-grade elixirs that had already appeared was already destined for the Hong Chamber of Commerce to take the lead and become the biggest winner of this Four Islands Auction Expo. There was absolutely no possibility of an accident. In comparison, the other large chambers of commerce, such as the wealthy guilds and the all-access gatherings, were nothing. Even the number 1 Five Elements Pharmacy could only stand aside this time. They were not on the same level as the Hong Chamber of Commerce at all. You being humble is not a bad thing, but being overly humble is a little pretentious. Never mind, after this is over, I will hold a banquet to welcome you. Let us brothers catch up. Housekeeper Song laughed loudly and turned to walk up to the stage. This time, he would personally be the host of the Four Islands Auction Expo. This Housekeeper Song is really practical. Lenny could not help but smile. When Housekeeper Song saw Hong Zhong previously, he was far less enthusiastic. This is not strange at all. It's human nature. Young hero Lin, you still don't know that this guy made a deal with Wang Tong and the others to deal with the Hong Chamber of Commerce yesterday. Although he already knows that we took out 100 top-grade elixirs, this is really a scam. However, in comparison, he has a better relationship with the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It's understandable for businessmen to pursue profits. Hong Zhong was already used to it. He had been to the far North Island dozens of times. It was normal for him to bribe a few spies. What the North Garrison guards did yesterday did not escape his eyes. Then he really is a weirdo. Lenny suddenly laughed and was speechless. Just as the two of them were talking, there was another commotion in the venue, and the source of the commotion this time was because the group from Middle Island had entered the venue. Tian Chan. Lin Yi's eyes immediately focused on the yellow figure. Just like yesterday, she was still dressed in yellow. If it was said that there was a slight possibility of mistaken identity due to the dark sky yesterday, then this time, Lin Yi was 100% sure that this woman was Tian Chan. Facing Lin Yi's gaze, Tian Chan did not respond at all, just like last night. Although it could be attributed to the fact that there were too many people, Lin Yi believed that she must have seen him, but he did not know why. She was just deliberately ignoring him. At this moment, Lin Yi's eyebrows suddenly twitched slightly because he saw a very conspicuous red-haired man among the group of people from Middle Island. His expression was frivolous, and he was about to reach out and put his arm around Tian Chan's waist. Lin Yi suddenly could not contain his anger. He had vaguely guessed the reason. He was afraid that this person was the reason why Tian Chan refused to acknowledge him. It had been half a year since he came to Heaven Level Island. It was not a long time, but it was not a short time either. In this completely unfamiliar and cruel world of cultivation, anything could happen. It was understandable that women in the secular world would be with other men in order to find a backer. Morongzhen, a woman from a village on Heaven Level Island, was already like this, not to mention the people in the secular world. It was not difficult to understand how Kong Mingming fawned on her. However, it was possible for others, but for Tian Chan, in Lin Yi's opinion, it was absolutely impossible. The relationship between two people was built on the edge of life and death, so it should not deteriorate so easily. However, Looking at the scene in front of him, even the usually calm Lin, he could not suppress the monstrous anger bursting from the bottom of his heart. Young hero Lin, don't be impatient. Hong Zhong, who was next to him, immediately sensed Lin Yi's unusual behavior and quickly held him down with one hand. He did not know why Lin Yi was suddenly so agitated, but he knew that if Lin Yi lost control on the spot, even he would not be able to protect Lin Yi. With Hong Zhong's strength, it was more than enough to suppress Lin Yi. In addition, Lin Yi had been restraining himself, so the others did not notice anything unusual. I'm fine. In the blink of an eye, Lin Yi had already calmed down, because he had just seen Tian Chan avoid the red-haired man without a trace. This at least meant that Tian Chan did not want to be with the red-haired man. As long as Tian Chan did not want to be with him, then everything else was just fleeting clouds in Lin Yi's eyes. It could not disturb his state of mind at all. It's good that you're fine. Young hero Lin, no matter what you want to do, I will help you. However, you must see the situation clearly, act according to your capabilities, and wait for the right opportunity to act. Hong Zhong comforted him. When Lin Yi heard that, his heart warmed. Originally, the relationship between him and Hong Zhong was purely based on interests. Now, it had gradually developed into a friendship despite the difference in age. To be able to make a businessman like Hong Zhong say such words, it was clear that his help this time was not in vain. That red-haired man, do you know who he is, Manager Hong? Lin Yi changed the topic and asked. Hong Zhong took a closer look and replied, I have seen that person a few times when I was at the headquarters of Middle Island. His name is Zheng Tianjia, and he is from the Pill Hall. His grandfather seems to be the deputy hall master of the Pill Hall. His qualifications and connections are extremely deep, and his position in the Pill Hall is extremely high. Zheng Tianjia? In that case, he is also a proper third-generation cultivator. Lin Yi nodded thoughtfully. As the people from Middle Island took their seats, all the forces had arrived. With Stewart Song's loud and clear introduction, this rare Four Islands Auction Expo finally began its final prelude. Generally speaking, at the beginning of any auction, the items that were put up for auction could only be regarded as appetizers. All the good items would definitely be left for the finale. However, this Four Islands Auction Expo was far superior to the previous North Island auctions in terms of standard and grade. Even if it was just the first item that was put up for auction, it was not a small matter. Chapter 40:16. It was similar to a marine creature, but vaguely resembled a human. This was the legendary existence of the North Sea, just like mermaids. Looking at this scene, even Lin Yi was stunned. Don't forget, on the way to the extreme North Island, they were just attacked by this legendary sea beast. At that time, they were only attacked by the song of the siren, and didn't see the appearance of the sea beast. Now they could make up for it. Sea beasts can be auctioned in this kind of auction? Lin Yi felt a little incredulous. He had heard from the ghost that although the spirit beast clan couldn't completely stop human cultivators from hunting spirit beasts, at least in such a formal public place, no one would dare to openly attack spirit beasts. Sea beasts are sea beasts and spirit beasts are spirit beasts. These are two different things. The spirit beast clan has never conquered the sea, and naturally, they won't protect any sea beasts. The ghost said disapprovingly in his mind. Lin Yi was speechless. At first glance, the sea beast cub looked like a human baby, and even its cry was the same. However, he didn't intend to intervene. After all, the spiritual jades at hand were limited, and he still needed to bid for the 6 casting materials listed by the king of junk. He couldn't afford to lose. However, Lin Yi's lack of interest didn't mean that others had the same idea. The Sea Demon clan's heaven-defying racial talent was destined to become a powerful killing machine once they were tamed as spiritual pets. Therefore, there were actually many people who had thoughts about this young sea demon. Immediately, someone raised his paddle and called out a price. 3,100 spiritual jades. 3,200 spiritual jades. For a time, the bidding sounds came one after another. The base price of 3,000 spiritual jades was not a small number for most people, but there were still so many people scrambling for it. The value of the sea beast's cub was obvious. However, the next voice made everyone shut up. 6,000 spiritual jades. I heard that if the sea beast's cub is killed and stewed, it has a miraculous effect on nourishing and beautifying. It's just right for you, junior sister Tian Chan. I'll accept it on your behalf. The person who spoke was the red-haired man from the middle island, Zheng Tianjia. Hearing this, the people present couldn't help but show reluctance, but there was nothing they could do. From more than 3,000 spiritual jades to 6,000 spiritual jades, the price had almost doubled. None of the people who were qualified to attend this auction were from poor families. However, spirit jades did not fall from the sky for no reason. Everyone had their own plans. It was clearly not worth it to ruin their plans for a mere baby siren. 6,000 spiritual jades. Zheng Tianjia took the sea beast's cub without hesitation. However, Tian Chan, whom he was trying to please, didn't say a word. Throughout the auction, Tian Chan, there was not even a slight change in her expression. Zheng Tianjia seemed to be used to this, and didn't find it boring. Tian Chan had always been a cold beauty in front of him, but it didn't matter. He was rich, and today was a rare occasion for him to be in the limelight. He always had a way to win the beauty's smile. For the next few auctions, this Four Islands auction actually became a one-man show for Zheng Tianjia. Every time, others would increase the price by 100 or 200, but when it came to Zheng Tianjia, he would directly double it. He didn't even blink. His grandfather was the deputy hall master of the Pill Hall. Things like spiritual jades were abundant in his family, and he couldn't afford to lose them. Unless those super chambers of commerce came forward to compete with him, no one else was his opponent. They were not on the same level. This Shan Pao. Linny was speechless. If this guy wasn't by Tian Chan's side, he wouldn't even bother to look at him. But now he had to pay attention to him. However, immediately after that, Linny found himself in trouble. This Shan Pao, who didn't lack spiritual jades, was simply super annoying at times. A set of 10 pieces of casting equipment, each of which is recognized by the blacksmiths as the best casting material. The rate of suitability can reach more than 80%, and the starting price is 10,000 spiritual jades. After Housekeeper Song finished his introduction, the audience immediately went into a small uproar. This was the first auction item with a starting price of 5-digit spiritual jades. Listening to this introduction, Linny couldn't help but be stunned. As early as the first day he came to the extreme North Island, he had already searched everywhere and found 4 of the 6 kinds of casting materials that he needed. Yesterday, he also found the remaining 2. In order to bid for all these materials, he thought that today would be a long battle, but he didn't expect such a sudden change. Many casting materials were combined into a set and auctioned together, and the 6 kinds of casting materials were all in it. Such a change really caught Linny off guard. He completely didn't consider this aspect of the bidding beforehand. And more importantly, this was Zheng Tianjia's special auction. Linny currently had 15,000 spiritual jades on hand. If it was only the 6 materials that were auctioned separately, it would be more than enough. However, if it was a set of 10 pieces, it would be somewhat insufficient. Without further ado, Linny could only bite the bullet and make a preemptive bid. 15,000 spiritual jades. The audience was in an uproar, and the focus of the crowd instantly focused on Lin Yi. They had always thought that Lin Yi was only a small worker in the Hong Merchant Association, but now it was obvious that he wasn't. After all, in such an important occasion, which merchant association would treat it as child's play to let a small worker bid? The crowd was still in an uproar, but there were 3 people in the crowd who were dumbfounded when their gazes landed on Lin Yi. These 3 people were none other than Nan Tianba, Southern Skygate, and Yuzha, whom Lin Yi had been wary of. With Nan Tianba's background and status, he naturally had a way to enter the Northern Island auction. However, they were purely here to bid, so they didn't arrive early like Lin Yi and Hong Zhong. They had only arrived at the Northern Island last night, so they didn't know anything about the commotion that had just occurred. Any normal person wouldn't believe that a mere grassroots newcomer, like Lin Yi, could actually come to such a high-class place. If he hadn't bid, perhaps Nan Tianba and the other two wouldn't have noticed his existence until the end of the auction. Why is this brat here? It seems like even if I don't get anything good from this trip, it won't be a wasted trip. Nan Tianba bared his teeth, while Southern Skygate and Yuja both smiled sinisterly. Chapter 40:17. Have 15,000 spirit jades as soon as he opens his mouth. This kid is quite arrogant. It seems like he still has a lot of spirit jades on him. Yuja's eyes lit up. Don't be impatient. Once the auction is over, we'll find a chance to make our move. This time we can't let him escape. If there's a mistake, we won't let it go. The Southern Skygate sneered. Even if they couldn't find the star ink stone on Lin Yi, it wouldn't be bad if they could get a large amount of spirit jades. Lin Yi's focus was on Tian Chan the whole time, so he didn't notice Nan Tianba and the other two. After he finished speaking, no one else followed up, suddenly increasing the price by 5,000 spirit jades. Even those who were originally interested had to think it over carefully. However, before Lin Yi could relax, Zheng Tianjia had already stood up. 20,000 spirit jades. Lin Yi's heart sank. Then, he saw Zheng Tianjia glancing at him disdainfully. TCH, I don't know where this beggar came from, but he dares to pretend to be rich in front of me. You really are a country bumpkin who hasn't seen the world. The spirit jades that I casually throw away can easily crush you to death. Lin Yi coldly looked at the other party, but there was nothing he could do. The cleverest housewife couldn't cook without rice. He only had 15,000 spirit jades on him. It was impossible for him to win against this mountain cannon. However, if he let this 10-piece forging set pass him by, then his trip to the extreme North Island would be a complete waste. In the future, if he wanted to gather the 6 materials, who knew how much effort he would have to put in? At this moment Hong Zhong, who was at the side, nodded to Lin Yi. Young hero Lin, just name your price. No matter how many spirit jades it is, our Hong merchant group will pay for it. This sentence was undoubtedly a timely help. Lin Yi didn't argue with Hong Zhong. After all, he had spared no effort to refine over 100 top-quality pills for him, so he could definitely accept this favor. 30,000 spirit jades. Lin Yi called out the price on the spot. He knew that if he wanted to compete with an idiot like Zheng Tianjia in a situation like this, he'd have to overwhelm his opponent with his aura. If it was just a small fight, not only would the opponent not back off, he'd only get more aggressive. From 20,000 to 30,000, this amount was enough to make everyone's eyelids twitch. They all cursed in their hearts. Damn it, another prodigal mountain cannon. This time, even Zheng Tianjia was stunned. As the first grandson of the deputy hall master of the Pill Hall, his identity was definitely that of a young master even in Middle Island. He was so rich and powerful that almost no one could defeat him. In this 4 islands auction, apart from them, there were no other important figures from the Middle Island. As for the forces from the other 4 islands, they were nothing in his eyes. He did not take them seriously at all. As he is possible, he is spirit as he as spirit king on. 30,000 spirit jades? You talk big, but it's a pity that I won't let go of anything I fancy. In this set of 10 pieces, there is coincidentally a material that can be used not only for casting, but also for refining pills. I'm going to personally refine a grade 4 muscle beautifying pill for junior sister Tian Chan, so that my junior sister's skin will always be smooth, firm, and glossy. Zheng Tianjia paused, then chuckled and said, So 50,000 spirit jades. As soon as he said that, the crowd was in an uproar again. Just for one material in the set of 10 pieces, he actually called out a price of 50,000 spirit jades. Moreover, this material was only used to refine the muscle beautifying pill that was useless for cultivation, just to please a woman. This Zheng Tianjia from the Pill Hall was really a spendthrift. Looking at this person's arrogant behavior, Lin Yi couldn't help but be speechless. At this crucial moment, he actually met this kind of idiot who didn't lack spirit jades. His luck was really bad. However, Lin Yi was determined to get these rare materials. Even if he had to spend a lot of spirit jades, he wouldn't hesitate. He immediately said, 60,000 spirit jades. Unexpectedly, Zheng Tianjia didn't even bat an eyelid and immediately said, 80,000 spirit jades. 100,000 spirit jades. Lin also didn't hesitate and said again. Damn, you're ruthless. Zheng Tianjie instantly choked. Now that things had developed to this point, almost everyone present had been scared silly by the two of them. Although the materials used to forge the weapons were indeed rare, it was far from shocking. Now, it had been easily raised to the sky-high price of 100,000 spirit jades. It was simply unbelievable. Such a sky-high price was definitely not a small amount to any party. Even if Zheng Tianjie's family didn't lack spirit jades, he had to carefully consider whether it was worth it or not. After all, he was only bidding for these things to please a woman. Saying that he didn't do proper work was already very flattering for him. If he continued to fight with Lin Yi, and his grandfather found out about this, he might be grounded for a month. That wouldn't be fun. Although Zheng Tianjie was an idiot, he wasn't a complete fool. At times like this, he still knew what was important. Immediately, he began to think of retreating. There was no need to get angry with a stranger he didn't know. Seeing the change in Zheng Tianjie's expression, Lin Yi was immediately happy. As long as this idiot backed down, no one else would compete with him for a mere 10 pieces of equipment. 100,000 spirit jades was a price that far exceeded its original value. No one would be stupid enough to continue bidding. As expected, Zheng Tianjie didn't speak. The rest of the people present all had a cold expression on their faces. They had no intention of participating in the competition. Seeing this, housekeeper Song no longer hesitated and was about to make the final decision. 10 pieces of equipment could be sold for a sky-high price of 100,000 spirit jades. This time, the Four Islands auction really had a lot of fools. They would definitely make a killing. However, just as Lin Yi was about to heave a sigh of relief, Zheng Tianjie, who had clearly thought of retreating, suddenly called out a price again. With a ferocious and arrogant face he said, "Wait, 200,000 spirit jades." With just one sentence, the entire crowd erupted. 200,000 spirit jades? Damn it, what was wrong with this world? Did this Shan Pao take the wrong medicine? Lin Yi was also inexplicably shocked. He looked deeply at the arrogant Zheng Tianjie and couldn't figure out what was going on. It wasn't until Lin Yi noticed the strange look in Tian Chan's eyes that he realized what was going on. Chapter 40:18. From her point of view, Lin Yi's unusual behavior of bidding against Zheng Tianjie was clearly to show his existence in front of her, to express his dissatisfaction with her previous indifference. I must thoroughly investigate this bumpkin's background when I return. He actually dared to rely on throwing spiritual jades to attract junior sister Tian Chan's attention in front of this young master. A toad wanting to eat swan meat. Do you think you're worthy? Zheng Tianjie scolded Lin Yi from afar while enjoying everyone's shocked gazes. The reason why he suddenly changed his mind was because of Tian Chan. He threw so many spiritual jades just to please Tian Chan, but now Tian Chan was actually paying attention to another man. How could he tolerate this? No matter how many spiritual jades he threw, he must trample on Lin Yi today. He must let this bumpkin, who came out of nowhere, know what a big shot of Middle Island was like. This strange turn of events really made Lin Yi stunned for a long time. But things did not end there. Lin Yi quickly calmed down and continued. Since you are in such a good mood, I will accompany you to the end. 300,000 spiritual jades. Humph, you want to compete with me? You do not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Today, I will smash you to death with spiritual jades. 500,000 spiritual jades. Zheng Tianjie said arrogantly. In order to show his face in front of Tian Chan, he was hysterical and did not care about the price. 500,000 spiritual jades? Lin Yi raised his eyelids, and just when everyone thought that the madman was going to keep fighting with the idiot Zheng Tianjie, he suddenly changed the topic. I actually just wanted to see how much money you have, that's all. I wasn't planning on buying this set in the first place, but since you're so sincere about it, I won't take it away from you. You can have the 500,000 spirit jades. With that, Lin Yi sat down leisurely, as if this matter really had nothing to do with him. He made such a big bet just to see the other party's capital? This invincible logic really shocked everyone present. As for Zheng Tianjie, he was stunned for a long time and couldn't react. After a long while, Zheng Tianjie slowly came back to his senses under the strange gazes of the surrounding people. No matter how brainless he was, he now knew that he had been completely fooled this time. "Fuck you, you cunning country bumpkin. I'm going to tear you to pieces today." Zheng Tianjie was about to lose his temper on the spot. Even when he was in the Middle Island, he was used to being domineering. Now that he came to the edge of the northernmost island, he naturally had no scruples. Under the watchful eyes of the public, he was actually teased and provoked by a nobody like Lin Yi. It was unbearable. However, before Zheng Tianjie could lose his temper, Steward Song's eyes had already turned cold. Countless fully armed northern garrison soldiers were ready to attack. Even if Zheng Tianjie's identity was special, this was the northernmost island after all. There was only one owner, and that was Steward Song, who was acting as the island owner. If Zheng Tianjie was allowed to make trouble here, it would be no different than slapping his face in public. Regardless of status or strength, the northernmost island was an extremely special force among the Heaven Stage Islands. It was a special existence that transcended the 5 major islands. Although they were polite to the people from the Middle Island, they would never compromise. If Zheng Tianjie wanted to make trouble here, he was simply courting death. In the blink of an eye, the situation became tense. Everyone held their breaths as a conflict was about to unfold. Fortunately, the rest of the people from the Middle Island beside Zheng Tianjie got up in time to suppress him. They were not as arrogant and fearless as Zheng Tianjie. They knew that if they let things go on like this, they would only get themselves into trouble. "What are you doing? Let me go. Are you trying to rebel?" Zheng Tianjie did not give up. However, the people around him were no weaker than him. They worked together to suppress him. No matter how strong Zheng Tianjie was, he could not move for a while. Although this idiot's brain was not very good, his strength was shockingly strong. Lin Yi looked at this scene from afar. Even if he did not directly feel the aura emitted from Zheng Tianjie, he could indirectly feel the strength of the other party. He was not on the same level as Zheng Tianjie at all. "Young hero Lin, there is actually no need for you to give in. Although 500,000 spiritual jades is a little too much, our Hong merchant group can still afford it." Hong Zhong, who was at the side, said. With the huge help that Lin Yi had given to the Hong merchant group this time, no matter how much spiritual jades he had, the Hong merchant group would definitely pay for him without hesitation. After all, during this period of time, although the Hong merchant group had been tricked by Wang Tong and the others, and was extremely short of high-end resources, correspondingly, the flow of spiritual jades in their hands was extremely abundant. 500,000 spiritual jades was not a problem at all. There is no need for that. In my opinion, the value of this 10-piece set is not more than 30,000. Isn't it crazy to raise it to 500,000 just to spite a fool? Lin Yi shook his head and said. He did not know how much the top-grade elixirs he refined for Hong Zhong would be sold at in the end, but it was already very kind that Hong Zhong had supported him to this point. There was no reason to waste spiritual jades at all. However, looking at Zheng Tianjie's ferocious expression from afar, which seemed to want to swallow him alive, Lin Yi also secretly cursed in his heart. "Not only do you want to touch my woman, but you also want to steal my casting materials. Damn it, just wait and see." Lin Yi was also a ruthless person in the secular world. Even in the current North Island, he was a master who would kill whoever he disliked. This time, he was really a little annoyed. Hearing Lin Yi say so, Hong Zhong did not say anything more. He immediately nodded and said, "Well, anyway, the casting materials you want should not be limited to this shop. I will think of a way later, and there should be a chance to help you gather them." However, Lin Yi replied with a non-committal Whoever started the trouble should end it. Now his mind was completely focused on Zheng Tianjie. Whether it was for Tian Chan, or for the casting materials, he must end things with Zheng Tianjie. The main goal of this time was to lose the auction item, so the next auction had little to do with Lin Yi. Although with the spiritual jades in his hand and the support of Hong Zhong, his capital was not less than Zheng Tianjie's, and he was competitive enough for any rare auction item. It was a pity that Lin Yi's mind was not on this anymore. In fact, not only Lin Yi, but also Zheng Tianjie had lost interest in the auction after experiencing the twists and turns just now. Now he only wanted to do one thing, which was to go back and ask someone to find out the details of Lin Yi as soon as possible, and then find a chance to kill this ignorant bumpkin. Chapter 40:19. In the end, after a whole day of intense auctions, the Four Islands auction finally came to an end at sunset. All the items provided by the Chambers of Commerce had been auctioned off. However, this didn't mean that the auction was over. On the contrary, this was only the first part of the auction. From the second day onwards, it would be an individual auction. Every participant who came to the North Island could take out their good stuff for auction. All kinds of rare treasures that had never been heard of or seen before would surface at that time. However, in today's auction alone, the more than 100 top-grade elixirs that Lin Yi had personally refined were unsurprisingly the most important and eye-catching items at the end of the auction. Even if the grade of the elixirs was not high, it was still a strategic elixir that only the core disciples of the super forces had the right to enjoy. Ordinary people couldn't even see it, including the 10 elixirs from the Middle Island Alchemy Hall and the other major chambers of commerce. The number of top-grade elixirs in this Four Islands auction had reached an unprecedented 130 elixirs, and 80% of them came from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. 3 elixirs in a group, 5 elixirs in a group, and even 10 elixirs in a group. Every group of elixirs inevitably became a bomb that detonated the auction, constantly breaking the record of the transaction price. These astronomical figures, which made people unconsciously dry up just by listening to them, clearly illustrated to everyone the same concept. What was called "there is a price but no supply." In the end, the Hong Chamber of Commerce had a great harvest. Relying on Lin Yi's more than 100 top-grade elixirs, the final transaction price actually reached more than 1 million spiritual jades, which was simply astounding. On average, this price was more than 10,000 spiritual jades for each elixir, which was simply an unimaginable miracle in normal times. When Lin Yi sold the top-grade Foundation Establishment barrier-breaking elixirs to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the discount was only 800 spiritual jades. Here it had actually increased by more than 10 times. It had to be said that on occasions like auctions, there were indeed a lot of idiots who had too many spiritual jades. No wonder so many super chambers of commerce regarded this auction as a must-win, racking their brains and being ambitious. No matter what, after this battle, the Hong Merchant Guild could finally hold their heads high. In the beginning, they had been targeted by everyone in every possible way, but today, they had reaped a great harvest. In this battle to turn the situation around, the Hong Merchant Guild could be said to have fought beautifully. The significance of this battle was far more than just earning 1 million spiritual jades. If it weren't for these 100 or so top-grade elixirs, the Four Islands auction this time, under the joint attack of many super chambers of commerce, like the Grand Chamber of Commerce and the All-Access Grand Chamber of Commerce, was very likely to become the Hong Chamber of Commerce's Waterloo. After that, they would be taken advantage of by others and disintegrated. This was not impossible but extremely likely. But now, not only did the Hong Chamber of Commerce successfully resolve the crisis, but they also successfully gained a foothold. They even had the capital to wait for an opportunity to launch a counterattack. They even had the opportunity to attack. Then they would be able to take the opportunity to attack. If they handled it well, not only would they not suffer, but also they could take the opportunity to attack. All of this could be said to be due to Lin Yi's contributions. It was not an exaggeration to say that to the Hong Merchant Group, Lin Yi was a great benefactor who turned the tide. Young hero Lin, this old man will never forget the great kindness you have shown me this time. Even an experienced and prudent person like Hong Zhong couldn't help but be overjoyed when he saw the accounts. He bowed to Lin Yi repeatedly. This time, Lin Yi not only saved the Hong Chamber of Commerce, but more importantly, he also saved Hong Zhong. Otherwise, without Lin Yi's help, Hong Zhong would have become the scapegoat that the higher-ups pushed out to take the blame. You're being too serious, Manager Hong. We've been working together for so long, helping you is helping myself. Don't talk about gratitude, you're treating me like an outsider. Lenny hurriedly helped him up. However, Hong Zhong waved his hand and shook his head. Cooperation is cooperation, and kindness is kindness. I am still clear about this. I can't thank you enough for your kindness. I will remember it. Seeing that Hong Zhong insisted, Lenny could only let him be. He nodded and said, "Fine. I still need to rely on Manager Hong in the future. Let's have a long way to go." Hong Zhong chuckled and stroked his beard. Well said, well said. If young hero Lin has any requests, this old man will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. However, this time, young hero Lin has not only done this old man a personal favor, but also a great favor to the entire Hong Chamber of Commerce. This old man must get the higher-ups to express their gratitude. I don't think that's necessary. Lenny was a little worried. If Hong Zhong really said that to the higher-ups of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, wouldn't it mean that Hong Zhong wanted to repay his kindness? That would be a little inappropriate. Hong Zhong was old and shrewd. He could see through Lin Yi's concerns. He immediately smiled and said, "Young hero Lin, don't worry. We talk about kindness in private, but businessmen always pursue profit. There has always been only business cooperation. There is no such thing as kindness. So this time, you have to treat it as a business transaction. You helped the Hong Chamber of Commerce resolve such a big crisis. It's reasonable for you to ask for something in return. No one can blame you. Time will be wasted. So you have to think carefully about what you want in return." This logic was not difficult to understand. Lin Yi and Hong Zhong could talk about kindness, but the Hong Chamber of Commerce might not care about this. Lin Yi still had to get some substantial benefits as soon as possible. However, Lin Yi could not think of any benefits at the moment. He immediately asked, "What kind of return? Manager Hong, why don't you give me an idea?" In this old man's opinion, there are only two ways. One is to directly ask for spiritual jades. With young hero Lin's contribution this time, not only will all the auction proceeds belong to young hero Lin, but you can also ask for a reward of hundreds of thousands of spiritual jades. This is a real benefit, simple and practical. Young hero Lin, are you interested? Hong Zhong probed. What about the second one? Lin Yi asked. A reward of hundreds of thousands of spiritual jades was indeed tempting. But for Lin Yi, as long as he had the divine armament cauldron to refine pills, he could earn more spiritual jades in the future. In this way, it was not so attractive. As for the second one, it sounds a little fake. That is to take the opportunity to get a position in the Hong Chamber of Commerce. But young hero Lin, you are an outsider. No matter how great your contribution is, it is impossible to give you a position with real power. At most, it will be a nominal title. For example, this time you can try to fight for the title of Honorary Vice President. Hong Zhong smiled mysteriously. Honorary Vice President? Isn't this a little exaggerated? Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. Chapter 40-20. So if shopkeeper Hong were to choose, which one would you choose? Lin Yi asked. Hong Zhong smiled. If I were to choose, I would definitely choose the second one. As long as you have enough power and status, you can have as many spiritual jades as you want. However, although this honorary vice president title is just a title, it at least represents status and privileges. Under normal circumstances, no amount of spiritual jades can buy it. When young hero Lin arrives at Middle Island, this title will make it much more convenient for you to do things. If that's the case, then I'll have to trouble shopkeeper Hong. Lin Yi immediately made up his mind. No matter what, he had to go to Middle Island in the future. Since Hong Zhong had already said so, there was no need to hesitate. Young hero Lin is indeed decisive. Once you fill in this appointment letter, you will be the honorary vice president of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Hong Zhong smiled as he took out an appointment letter and handed it to Lin Yi. Obviously, he had already communicated with the headquarters. Then from now on, we will be colleagues. However, since I am the honorary vice president, then shopkeeper Hong. Lin Yi was slightly stunned and then smiled. If he had chosen spiritual jades, Hong Zhong would not have taken out this appointment letter. However, Hong Zhong knew him well, and knew that he would definitely choose the position of vice president. This incident happened so suddenly. It's certain that someone is behind it, but within the Hong Chamber of Commerce, there must be someone who doesn't sit properly. Hong Zhong smiled meaningfully. Settling accounts after autumn is the right time. Speaking of which, it has been a long time since this old man has moved from his seat. Lin Yi smiled knowingly. Then I will wait for shopkeeper Hong's promotion. Just as Lin Yi was talking to Hong Zhong, the entire Heroes Gathering Hall was in chaos. There was no other reason. Zhang Tianjie was sending people everywhere, trying to find ways to investigate Lin Yi's background. Tian Chan knew that she couldn't continue watching the situation develop in the direction that she didn't want to see the most. Otherwise, the situation would change. Things might really get out of hand. Thinking of this, Tian Chan immediately found a powerful female cultivator. Her name was Lien Xian, and she was the master that Tian Chan had acknowledged in the Alchemy Hall after being teleported to Heaven Stage Island. Chaner, come find master in the middle of the night. What's the matter? Lien Xian looked at Tian Chan with a gentle gaze. She was very fond of this new disciple that she had accepted not long ago, and had always treated her as her own. Tian Chan bowed respectfully, and took out a pill from her bosom. She had specially bid for it during the auction during the day. Master, regardless of the quality of these elixirs, they are considered the best even among the best. I'm just a little puzzled. The Hong Chamber of Commerce has never been known for elixirs, so how did they get their hands on such high-quality elixirs, and more than 100 of them at once? Tian Chan pretended to be puzzled. This question, Lien Xian, and the others have been thinking about it for a long time. That's right. Even the Five Elements Pharmacy, which has always been famous for its elixirs, only took out 10 of them this time. The Hong Chamber of Commerce actually took out more than 100 of them at once. It's really unbelievable. If this continues, the Five Elements Pharmacy might be squeezed out by them. Tian Chan immediately agreed. That's right. The Five Elements Pharmacy is an important source of income for the Alchemy Hall. We can't let anything happen to it. So I feel that I should find a chance to investigate this clearly. Chaner, I'm very pleased that you have such intentions. Lien Xian smiled gently. Then she said, Oh right, do you know that young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce? I seem to have heard him call your name yesterday. Yes, I've seen him a few times in the secular world, but I'm not familiar with him. Tian Chan replied. Since that's the case, Chaner, you can think of a way to ask him about the origins of these elixirs. Maybe you'll be able to find some clues. Lien Xian suggested. Sure enough, Lien Xian's words were exactly what Tian Chan wanted. She bid for this elixir precisely because of this intention. She wanted to be able to see Lin Yi properly. Yes, disciple understands. Tian Chan immediately left Lien Xian's room and turned to leave the Hall of Heroes. She had to pass on the news here to Lin Yi as soon as possible, so that he could prepare early. Tian Chan's sudden visit really gave Lin Yi a pleasant surprise. From the first time he saw Tian Chan yesterday until now, Tian Chan's abnormal reaction had already become a big knot in Lin Yi's heart. During the day, there were many people around, especially when Zhang Tianjie was beside Tian Chan. Even if Lin Yi wanted to talk to Tian Chan, he didn't have the chance at all. After the auction ended, Tian Chan immediately returned to the Hall of Heroes with the others. Lin Yi was even more helpless. He didn't expect that she would take the initiative to visit him now. Tian Chan, are you alright? Lin Yi took a deep breath. He originally had a lot of things to say, but they turned into a simple greeting. Hong Zhong, who was originally with him, smiled playfully when he saw this. He tactfully left the room and gave the two of them some space to be alone. After Hong Zhong left, Tian Chan's originally cold expression gradually became complicated. Finally, there was a bit of the familiar warmth from the secular world. Thinking back to the little things that happened between the two of them in the secular world, it was so beautiful compared to now. She originally thought that after coming to Heaven Stage Island, it would be a wonderful journey that she yearned for. But she didn't expect the reality to be so cruel. It was unbearable to look back, and even if she wanted to escape she couldn't. Thinking of the purpose of this trip, Tian Chan's mood immediately fell to the bottom. After a long time, Tian Chan's face darkened, and she lowered her head. Lin Yi, I'm sorry. What's wrong? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat, and then he had a bad premonition. He quickly asked. Tian Chan lowered her head, and didn't speak for a long time, with a sad expression on her face that was about to cry. Lin Yi quickly squeezed out a smile on his face, and pretended to be enlightened. Oh, you're talking about the matter of deliberately not acknowledging me before, right? It's okay. After all, there are many people, and it's not a bad thing to be careful. I can understand. And you've already come to find me, right? I'm not that stingy. You're stingy. Tian Chan couldn't help but laugh, but then she tightened her face again, and said with a serious face, Lin Yi, I'm not joking with you anymore. I came to find you today to tell you one thing. From today onwards, don't come to find me again, and if you meet me in the future, you have to pretend that you're not familiar with me. Chapter 40-21. There's no why. If you want me to be well, then do as I say. Tian Chan forcefully held back the tears in her eyes. She tried her best to not appear so weak and aggrieved in front of Lin Yi. She constantly told herself to be strong, or at least pretend to be strong. Lin Yi took a deep breath, looked at Tian Chan, and said word by word. Tian Chan, actually, we came all the way from the secular world. You should know what kind of person I am. If you can't give me a reasonable explanation, I will never give up, unless you don't like me anymore. Hearing this, Tian Chan's heart suddenly trembled. With her unforgettable feelings for Lin Yi, how could she be willing to say such cruel words? It was every girl's most romantic dream to be together with the person they loved forever. Tian Chan was naturally no exception. However, reality did not allow it. If she did not let Lin Yi let go now, it would not only be her who would be hurt, but Lin Yi would also inevitably suffer a disaster. Instead of watching Lin Yi die in front of her, it was better to forget about each other. Lin Yi had so many confidants. Surely, he would soon be able to heal the pain, right? Yes, I don't like you anymore. Tian Chan turned her head, and did not look at Lin Yi. Heaven Stage Island was not like the secular world. Anyone from here was more powerful than them. Tian Chan naturally did not want Lin Yi to make an unnecessary sacrifice. Seeing Tian Chan's behavior, Lin Yi frowned slightly, and then suddenly thought of something. Is it because of that Zheng Tianjia? Faced with Lin Yi's interrogation, Tian Chan was suddenly shocked, but she pretended to be calm and said, Why do you have so many questions? If you ask again, I will kick you. After half a year, hearing Tian Chan's familiar mantra again, Lin Yi couldn't help but feel sour in his heart. He suddenly opened his arms and pulled Tian Chan into his embrace, hugging her tightly. You! Tian Chan let out a soft cry, and when she regained her senses, her nose was already filled with Lin Yi's scent, a familiar scent that she could never forget. Tian Chan struggled symbolically, but she couldn't break free from Lin Yi's embrace. She immediately gave up trying. If it weren't for the cruel reality, she wouldn't have thought of breaking free from such a warm and comforting embrace. In the small room, under the candlelight, the couple hugged each other tightly, quietly feeling each other's heartbeat, unwilling to let go for a long time. After a long time, Lin Yi stroked Tian Chan's hair. He asked, Now can you tell me why? I beg you don't ask. This matter doesn't benefit you at all. Just pretend that you didn't see me, okay? If I knew you would be here, I wouldn't have come to this auction. Tian Chan's delicate body trembled slightly in Lin Yi's embrace. Her voice was filled with a pitiful sob. Lin Yi still hugged her tightly in his arms. He reached out and patted her back lightly. He said slowly, Don't be afraid. There's always a way out. Trust me. As long as you tell me properly, there's always a way to solve everything. Tell me, is it because of that Zheng Tianjia? What did he do to you? At this point, Tian Chan couldn't hide it anymore. She could only admit, That's right. He's the direct grandson of our Pill Hall's deputy hall master. His grandfather said in front of everyone that he wants me to be engaged to him. Want you to be engaged to him? I think he's tired of living. Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. Instantly, a murderous aura was revealed. Tian-chan covered Lin Yi's mouth and shook her head. Don't worry. No matter what, I won't let him get away with it. However, he is an extremely jealous person. Anyone who has even the slightest bit of relationship with me, even if it's just a few words from my little junior brother, will inevitably explode during alchemy within a few days. Although there is no evidence, everyone knows that it's definitely his doing. It's just that under the tyranny of his grandfather, who is the vice hall master, no one dares to say anything. The Pill Hall's deputy hall master, what's his strength level? Lin Yi sighed and asked. At least above the golden core stage, because Zheng Tianjie himself is already a golden core stage master, Tian-chan said with lingering fear. Strength is only secondary. What's important is his grandfather's position. Because Hall Master Zhang is not around all year round, he is almost a person of authority in the Alchemy Hall. Only a few registered disciples of Master Zhang can ignore him and mind their own business. Other than that, in the entire Alchemy Hall, he can be considered the most arrogant existence. Zhang Liju's disciple? Then since he received Zhang Liju's inheritance in the common world, did that mean he was also Zhang Liju's disciple? Lin Yi mumbled, but didn't say much to Tian-chan. He just nodded. Alright, I understand. Looking at Lin Yi's calm face, Tian-chan felt that something was wrong. She smiled bitterly. Even if we don't talk about his grandfather, Zheng Tianjie alone is already super hard to deal with. Golden Core Stage Masters aren't people we can fight at all. Lin Yi, don't do anything stupid. It's better if we pretend that we don't know each other. If we get too close, it might bring disaster to you. Lin Yi smiled noncommittally. What's going to come will come eventually. I can't pretend that I don't know you just because of some bullshit like this. Tian-chan was a little touched, but panicked at the same time. She kicked Lin Yi lightly. It's true, I'm not joking with you. You've already caught his attention when you competed with him at the auction today. He's already looking for people to investigate you. So you have to be careful these few days. Don't give him any chances to take advantage of you. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Lin Yi nodded on the surface, but his heart was already filled with killing intent. The current situation was such that even if he didn't take the initiative to cause trouble for Zheng Tianjie would definitely cause trouble for him. Moreover, because of what happened to Tian-chan, they were already irreconcilable enemies. Plus, if he were to think further, he'd go to Zhongdao to ask for Zhang Liju's help. Leaving a bastard like Zheng Tianjie behind would only bring him a lot of unnecessary trouble. He might as well use this chance to kill him, and that'd be the end of it. Seeing Lin Yi's reaction, Tian-chan thought that he heard what she said just now. She let out a sigh of relief. She didn't care what happened to her, but if she killed Lin Yi because of her, she would really regret it for the rest of her life. Chapter 40-22. Staying in the small room. Tian-chan buried herself in Lin Yi's arms for a long time before she reluctantly left Lin Yi's embrace. If the conditions allowed, she even hoped that she could hide in this warm embrace for the rest of her life. However, she came here in the name of finding Lin Yi to find out about the origin of the elixir. If she stayed for too long, it would definitely arouse suspicion, especially if Zheng Tianjie found out that she was meeting Lin Yi at night. Lin Yi would not be far from death. In the end, Lin Yi watched Tian-chan leave reluctantly in the night. He did not have any worries about his children. On the contrary, his heart was filled with murderous intent. He'd made up his mind to get rid of that idiot Zheng Tianjie from the very beginning. After all, Zheng Tianjie had already sent people to investigate him, and if he really did manage to find out more about him, it'd be too easy for him to give himself away when the time came. Putting on the Thousand Silk Mask, Lin Yi immediately got up and went to the Hall of Heroes. However, the first problem he encountered was how to sneak into the Hall of Heroes without alerting the guards. Originally, according to the Northern Guard's explanation, if he came with Tian-chan, Lin Yi could actually go in directly. However, this operation was of great importance. Any carelessness could lead to disaster. Lin Yi did not want Tian-chan to be involved in any way, so he had to figure out a way himself. His early career as an assassin had taught Lin Yi one thing. There was never an impenetrable wall in the world. No matter how tight the guards were, as long as he waited patiently, he would always find an opportunity. As expected, Lin Yi waited in the dark for a full 4 hours, taking advantage of the fact that the North Guard was changing shifts, and finally grasped the opportunity. He exerted his full speed, and successfully climbed over the wall before the new round of guards arrived. After entering the Hall of Heroes, the next problem was how to find Zheng Tianjia. Of course, there was an even bigger and more crucial problem, and that was how to kill Zheng Tianjia. Don't forget, Tian Shan had already said that although Zheng Tianjia was an alchemist, he was an out-and-out gold core stage expert, a powerful existence that was completely above all the Foundation establishment stage experts. The powerful aura that he had inadvertently revealed during the auction during the day was already very clear. On the other hand, Lin Yi himself was only in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage. At most, he would be considered invincible among the newcomers in the Welcome Pavilion. In this northernmost island, in front of Zheng Tianjia, who was at the Golden Core stage, he couldn't even withstand a single blow. If they really fought, Zheng Tianjia wouldn't even need to show his face, and could easily crush Lin Yi into pieces. Although in my eyes, a master of the Gold Core stage is nothing, but for the current you, it's not a big deal. Even if he was an idiot or a fake Gold Core stage cultivator, he was still a big deal. Kid, before you make a move, you have to think clearly. Even the ghost was surprised by Lin Yi's plan. The situation forced me, and I was forced to do it. But with Senior's vision, if I release the new move that I recently researched, is it possible to kill a master of the Gold Core stage? Lin Yi responded in his mind. This, you've really stumped me. A mid-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, instantly killing a Golden Core cultivator. Even with my many years of experience, I have never heard of it. After all, that's something that shouldn't normally happen. The ghostly thing paused for a moment before continuing. However, that move of yours was quite original. A true Qi bomb can kill a master of the peak late stage of the Foundation establishment stage. This move seems to be even better, and there should be some chance of success. Hearing the ghost's words, Lin Yi suddenly laughed. Not to mention some chance. Even if there is only one chance, I have to try this time. If I can't kill Zheng Tianjia with such a rare opportunity, there will be no more chances when he goes back to the Middle Island. Even if it was just for Tian Shan, Lin Yi had to find a way to kill Zheng Tianjia today. Otherwise, if Zheng Tianjia went back and forced Tian Shan to get engaged, he would not be able to help at all in the far North Island. How could he be worthy of being Tian Shan's man then? Carefully holding his breath and hiding his body, Lin Yi secretly looked around the Heroes Gathering Hall, but he could not find Zheng Tianjia. Of course, this was because he did not dare to get too close. After all, even apart from the Northern Guard, the people who lived in the Heroes Gathering Hall were all masters, and there were many masters above the Gold Core stage. With Lin Yi's strength, if he got too close, he would be courting death. But he'd have to take a risk if he couldn't find the person he was looking for. At this moment, several people appeared from the main gate of the Heroes Gathering Hall and hurried to a building opposite the guest rooms. Judging from the familiar sign, it should be an alchemy room specially prepared for guests. Lin Yi had used it before, but it was just outside the Heroes Gathering Hall. Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. When he was looking around, he had been to all the other places except the alchemy room. Could it be that Zheng Tianjia was inside? This was not surprising. The reason why he bid with him for the 10-piece set of casting equipment during the day was to get one of the materials to refine the 4th-grade muscle beautifying pill to please Tian Shan. At this moment, it was reasonable for him to refine the pill at night. As expected, after those people waited at the door for a while, the door of the alchemy room opened, and the person who walked out was Zheng Tianjia. What kind of bullshit efficiency is this? It's just investigating the background of a country bumpkin. With our Alchemy Hall's intelligence network, it actually took such a long time. What a useless good for nothing. Fortunately, this young master hasn't started refining the flesh beauty pill yet. Otherwise, if I were to be disturbed by you halfway and cause the refining to fail, causing junior sister Tian Chan to be disappointed in this young master, can you bear the responsibility? Zheng Tianjie scolded them to their faces. Those people shrunk their necks and did not dare to talk back. They let Zheng Tianjie scold them for a while. When his anger subsided, they followed Zheng Tianjie to a room not far from the alchemy room to report the information they had found. Seeing this, Linny did not follow them to eavesdrop. Instead, he pondered for a while and slipped into the alchemy room. From what Zheng Tianjie said just now, it was easy to tell that this guy would definitely come back to refine the muscle beautifying pill after listening to those people's reports. For Linny, this was simply a godsend opportunity. Chapter 40-23. Linny didn't know whether the materials in front of him were brought by Zheng Tianjie personally, or the extreme North Island itself had been placed here in advance and specially prepared for distinguished guests like them. However, in an inconspicuous corner of the display cabinet, he found the 10-piece casting set that was auctioned during the day. Linny glanced at it and counted it. There were only 9 of them. The remaining one had been taken out separately and placed next to the alchemy furnace with the rest of the alchemy materials. It should be prepared by Zheng Tianjie to refine the beauty pill. Fortunately, the remaining 9 casting materials had already covered the 6 that Linny needed. Linny didn't hesitate to put it into the space of the jade pendant. Anyway, these were placed in an inconspicuous corner. Even if Zheng Tianjie came back, he wouldn't notice it in a short time. However, as for the other alchemy materials present, Linny didn't want to touch them. Firstly, it was easy to arouse Zheng Tianjie's suspicion if he took too many. If it wasn't Zheng Tianjie's, then Zheng Tianjie's death would arouse the suspicion of others. Linny didn't want to complicate matters. Time was pressing. Zheng Tianjie might come back at any time. Linny immediately began to prepare the new big killing move. It was impossible for a middle stage of foundation establishment stage to challenge a gold core stage master by conventional means. No matter how powerful Lin Yi's trump card was, or how powerful his martial arts technique was, it was all in vain. In any case, he absolutely couldn't escape the fate of being killed in a second. The only way was to do what he did to Nan Tianyong, who was at the peak of the late stage of foundation establishment stage. He prepared a super true chi bomb in advance and threw it at his face when he was unprepared. It was the same trick. The last time he used it on Su Lingchong, who was at the peak of foundation establishment stage, it was obviously not effective, although it was because of insufficient time to prepare. But at least it had proved that with Lin Yi's current strength, it was obviously unrealistic to use the same trick to deal with a gold core stage master, whose strength was far above Su Lingchong. Therefore, Lin Yi began to study a new big killing move. After all, the big killing move in the secular world was already stretched thin on Heavenly Stage Island. They were already stretched thin on Heaven Stage Island and could not continue to be used. The first thing Lin Yi thought of was fusion. He wanted to fuse other people's great killing moves with his own. This was how the Wildfire 8 trigrams palm was created. What Lin Yi was thinking was that if he could fuse other people's big killing moves with his own true chi bomb, in that case, wouldn't its power be greatly increased? He thought about it for a while. And for some reason, he thought of Kong Ming Ming's alchemic fire bomb. In Zhang Liju's notes, Zhenqi and alchemic fire were 2 completely different forms of energy. When they were forcefully combined by external forces, the power that burst forth from them was something that he had never seen before in his life, and it left him gasping in amazement. Lin Yi, who had been racking his brains, was suddenly enlightened. Not only did he know how to use Jinchi bombs, but he also knew how to use pill flame bombs. Hence, just like that, a new martial technique was created. However, everything was based on theory, and he had yet to experiment with it. While Zheng Tianjie was not back yet, Lin Yi immediately found a hidden shelf and sat cross-legged, doing 2 things at the same time, condensing true chi bomb in one hand and alchemic fire bomb in the other. He tried his best to condense both to the extreme at the same time. After the time it took to burn a stick of incense, even with the jade space quickly replenishing the true qi in his body. Lin Yi, on the other hand, was sweaty from the exhaustion. The qi bomb and the fire bomb, when condensed to the extreme, were both deadly. Now that he was doing both at the same time, one could only imagine the intensity of the process. At this moment, Lin Yi's ears trembled slightly. The footsteps outside the door were getting closer and closer. Zheng Tianjie was back. What the hell? He's just a grassroots newbie from the North Island, and he dares to come here and challenge me. He's really evil. That's good. It doesn't matter if I kill this kind of trash. Tomorrow, I'll let him die without a burial place. Zheng Tianjie walked into the alchemy room while cursing. Lin Yi's heart suddenly jumped to his throat. In the face of an expert in the gold core stage, he only had one chance to attack with such a huge gap in strength. If he missed, he would definitely die. Moreover, he had already learned a big lesson from his previous encounter with Su Lingchong. The more powerful an expert was, the smaller the chances left for him. He had to take advantage of the moment when the opponent was the most relaxed, and suddenly launch a fatal attack. Otherwise, no matter how fierce the newly developed killer move was, once the opponent dodged it, it would be useless. Therefore, Lin Yi had to be careful and look for the best opportunity. Stepping into the door, Zheng Tianjie casually glanced around the room and did not find anything unusual. It was not that he was afraid of someone sneaking up on him. It was just out of a cautious habit that an alchemist had developed since childhood. After confirming that there was nothing wrong, Zheng Tianjie closed the door and walked to the alchemy furnace, ready to start refining the 4th-grade muscle beautifying pill. Until now, Lin Yi still held his breath and did not move. He knew that this was not the time when the opponent was the most relaxed, and it was not the best opportunity. He still needed to wait patiently. Finally, after Zheng Tianjie finished resting, he got up and picked up the prepared materials and put them into the cauldron. Just as he began to condense the elixir fire, something strange happened. Without warning, a pair of palms suddenly emerged from behind him, each holding 2 kinds of extremely powerful energy. With a roar, both hands suddenly put together in front of Zheng Tianjie's chest. The true qi bomb and the elixir fire bomb, which were already on the verge of exploding, were forcefully pinched together by an external force at this moment, less than a fist's distance from Zheng Tianjie's face. Zheng Tianjie never thought that someone would dare to hide in the alchemy room and attack him from behind. When he reacted, the true qi bomb and the elixir fire bomb had collided in front of his face and exploded. Boom! Not only the heroes' gathering hall, but even the entire northernmost island suddenly shook. All kinds of birds and beasts ran wildly in all directions. It was a horrifying scene of the end of the world. At this moment, everyone on the northernmost island couldn't help but be shocked and pale. Everyone was panicking and looked at each other, not knowing what to do. A wretched figure suddenly sprang out from the broken walls of the alchemy room. Taking advantage of the fact that everyone had not rushed over, he fled with all his might. This person was Lin Yi. Chapter 40-24. But before that, Lin Yi stayed at the messy scene for a little while. Even if he had to risk being discovered, he had to fake the scene and make it look like an accident. Since Zheng Tianjie liked to let others die by exploding furnaces, then it wouldn't be too much to use this trick. After all, this guy's identity was not trivial. If he was really found to be an assassination, then the entire northernmost island would be investigated. And then it would be a big trouble. But if this guy died because of a cauldron explosion, then it would be his own fault. He couldn't blame anyone else. The extreme North Island could use this excuse to explain to the Hall of Elixirs, and they wouldn't have to risk offending so many important people and search for him. And Lin Yi would be able to escape. Now Lin Yi, the culprit, was heavily injured, and Zheng Tianjie, who was caught off guard, was hit right in the chest. One could imagine what would happen to him. Even if he was a powerful golden core master, he was still made of flesh and blood. There was no way he could withstand such a horrifying explosion. If it was a pure qi bomb or a pellet fire bomb, Zheng Tianjie might be able to defend himself like Su Lingchong did, relying on his unparalleled qi to defend himself. But after the two were combined, It was a completely different concept. Even if Zheng Tianjie was a master of the gold core stage, suddenly encountering such a heaven-defying killing move, he could only be described as certain death. As for whether or not Zheng Tianjie was completely dead, Lin didn't care anymore. One thing was for sure, even if he wasn't completely dead, he wouldn't be far from it, unless Zhang Liju was here. Otherwise, no one would be able to save him. The only thing Lin was worried about was whether or not he could escape successfully. The earth-shattering tremor had alerted the entire northernmost island, including the nearby northern guards. The nearby northern guards quickly gathered around after they realized what was going on. With Lin Yi's current state, he would be screwed if they found him. Countless people quickly approached the scene. Lin Yi had purposely chosen a direction with fewer people, and he had the cover of the night. But in the end, he could not resist the crowd from all directions, especially the well-trained northern garrison guards. Others might have gathered around just to watch the show, but the northern garrison was clearly in a state of emergency. Lin Yi was covered in injuries and looked suspicious. It was easier said than done to slip out from under their noses. Lin Yi's movements could not be said to be slow, and he specifically chose to move through the most concealed corners. In this kind of chaotic situation where there were many eyes, the probability of being discovered and suspected was not high. However, he had a fatal problem, and that was his injury. The previous killer move used up a lot of stamina, and now the reflected injuries were even worse. Even if Lin Yi forcefully gritted his teeth and endured, he could clearly feel the rapid loss of physical strength. And at this time, he still hadn't left the Hall of Heroes. "Who is it?" A shout came from the corner in front of them, followed by dense but orderly footsteps. Judging from the sound, it should be a team of northern garrison guards. Lin Yi was shocked and didn't bother to check. Without any hesitation, he pushed open a door and entered. In his current embarrassing state, if he ran into them, he would definitely be arrested by the northern garrison guards as a suspicious person. That would be the end of everything. What was more, Lin Yi's current state was extremely poor. His physical strength was almost overdrawn, and even his genuine chi had become messy. Otherwise, with his hiding ability, he would not have been noticed by the northern garrison guards from so far away. No matter what, he must not be discovered. With that in mind, Lin Yi desperately flashed into the room next to him. But to his great surprise, what he saw was a lovely pink room. The room was very cozy, like a girl's boudoir. Hula hula hula. Ning Xuefei hummed a little song while taking a comfortable hot bath. She was in a good mood. At the auction during the day, she had successfully bid for 2 foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs, which were rare treasures. Even in the Middle Island, they could not be bought all the time. She had to book them with the 5 Elements Commerce. She didn't expect that she would be so lucky to get them on the island in the north. In this way, she would be able to level up as soon as she touched the barrier. The success rate was almost 100%, which was incomparable to a foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixir. For a girl like Ning Xuefei, who wasn't passionate about strength, the thing she hated the most in her life was nothing more than the boring daily meditation and cultivation. If she was stuck at the bottleneck of leveling up and couldn't make any progress for a long time, or even forced to go into secluded cultivation, that kind of painful experience was something she deeply hated. She didn't want to experience it a second time in her life. Although the foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixir could not be directly used as an experience elixir like the foundation establishment elixir, and could level up after eating it, at least it had an unparalleled miraculous effect for breaking through the barrier. It could save a lot of unnecessary seclusion and practice. Therefore, for Ning Xuefei, the harvest on the island in the north this time made her very happy. The only thing in Ning Xuefei's mind now was to ask the people of the Hong Chamber of Commerce tomorrow to see if she could get more elixirs. This time, she came to the island in the north in a hurry and didn't bring too many spiritual jades in her card. Today, she was very lucky to be able to bid for 2 foundation establishment bottleneck-breaking elixirs. It was unrealistic to bid for more elixirs with others. She could only think of other ways to discuss privately. This time, The Hong Chamber of Commerce directly took out more than 100 elixirs. Maybe there were still stocks that they hadn't taken out. If she could buy them privately, even if it was just a temporary reservation, it would be an unexpected surprise and worth a try. Just as Ning Xuefei was enjoying her bath, she suddenly saw an embarrassed figure stumbling in from behind the screen, with blood all over his body. Before she could react, he fell into her bathtub with a plop sound. Ah! Ning Xuefei was shocked. In a panic, she grabbed the water ladle next to her and smashed it on the back of Lin Yi's head. Lin Yi was already exhausted and in a very bad state. After being hit by this blow, his eyes rolled up and he directly fainted. However, before he closed his eyes, he still relied on his willpower to say a sentence. "Don't make a sound. When I wake up, I will reward you greatly." Chapter 40-25. Isn't this the young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce? How did he get beaten up like this? Ning Xuefei was shocked and confused. Because she wanted to buy the best elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, she had a deep impression of Hong Zhong and Lin Yi, especially Lin Yi, who had just fought with Zheng Tianjie during the day. Zheng Tianjie, a fool, was forced to buy a 10-piece set of casting equipment with a base price of only 10,000 spiritual jades, at the sky-high price of 500,000 spiritual jades. Ning Xuefei was so amused that she almost went crazy on the spot. In Ning Xuefei's eyes, an idiot like Zheng Tianjie was not a good guy, while Lin Yi was a clever young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, he was not a bad guy. Could it be that someone is going to rob the best elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so they want to force this young man to commit a crime? But this young man doesn't obey them and escapes desperately? Ning Xuefei's thoughts were so imaginative. She wanted to buy elixirs from the Hong Chamber of Commerce, so she thought that others were thinking the same thing. So in the blink of an eye, she had already imagined a thrilling chivalrous scene. From beginning to end, she did not associate the loud noise with it. She thought it was just an ordinary earthquake in the far North Island. She never thought that it was caused by something. Just when Ning Xuefei was fantasizing, there was a sudden knock on the door, followed by the voice of the Northern Guard. "You inside, open the door. We are the Northern Guard, and we suspect that an assassin has sneaked in." "Hey, I'm taking a shower. What do you want?" Ning Xuefei wrinkled her nose and shouted discontentedly. Hearing this answer, the man at the door suddenly hesitated, but he seemed to be unwilling to give up. But another man's voice sounded next to him. "Pockmark, forget it. This is Miss Ning's boudoir in West Island. How dare you check it? Do you want to die?" Yes, this is a big shot in West Island. Even Steward Song has to welcome her with a smile. This room is specially prepared for Miss Ning. No one else is allowed to stay here. We can't afford to offend her. Besides, we can't be sure that there is an assassin in here. Maybe your eyes were playing tricks on you. The other Northern Garrison guards also tried to persuade him. Finally, the Northern Guards gave up on the idea of searching the house. They apologized to Ning Xuefei through the door and left for the scene. Ning Xuefei heaved a sigh of relief when she heard the voices outside the door gradually fade away. Looking down at Lin Yi in his bathtub, he shook his head speechlessly. This guy can't drown here, can he? How am I supposed to take a bath with him here? Ning Xuefei paused for a moment. It was a little awkward, but Lin Yi was a man after all. As a girl, she couldn't just continue soaking in the same tub as a stranger, no matter how insensitive she was. She couldn't just continue soaking in the same tub as a stranger, could she? He climbed out of the tub, dried himself quickly and put on his clothes. Ning Xuefei turned her head again and looked at Lin Yi for a while. Then she reached out and dragged Lin Yi out of the tub. After all, the water in the tub was not deep, but it was not shallow either. With Lin Yi's current miserable state, if she left him lying in the tub, it was not impossible for him to drown. After dragging Lin Yi out, Ning Xuefei didn't do anything further. She just squatted aside. Holding her head, she continued to look at Lin Yi. After all, she was a girl, and a lady who never served people. Asking her to help a strange man like Lin Yi dry his body, so that he wouldn't catch a cold was too much. It was already a great kindness for her to cooperate, and not throw Lin Yi to the Northern Garrison Guards. At the same time, the heroes' gathering hall outside was in a complete mess. After finding out that the person in trouble was Zheng Tianjie, the young master of the alchemy hall, the entire heroes' gathering hall was surrounded by countless Northern Garrison Guards. Housekeeper Song and the big shots from all the islands were all there, but the rest were stopped outside by the Northern Garrison Guards. It was related to Zheng Tianjie, a key figure. Before Housekeeper Song and the others came to a clear and unified conclusion, they had to strictly block all news. Otherwise, if the news spread like wildfire, or even to the Middle Island, it would be out of control. Leaving the situation outside aside, Lin Yi, who was in Ning Xuefei's boudoir, had been in a coma for 4 hours. He didn't wake up until the sky outside was turning bright. "What's your name?" Ning Xuefei, who was squatting aside until her legs were numb, quickly asked. Her eyes lit up. However, Lin Yi didn't respond to her. He closed his eyes and turned a deaf ear to her. After turning over, he sat down with his legs crossed and started the mantra. When he was in the space of the jade pendant, he had almost recovered from his injuries, but he still hadn't recovered his strength and genuine qi. "What? You're ignoring me?" Ning Xuefei pursed her lips, but she didn't say anything. She just squatted aside and watched. Girls who were insensitive were often more reasonable than most people, especially in such an abnormal situation. If it were someone else, they would have thrown Lin Yi to the Northern Garrison Guards. Why would they keep such a suspicious stranger in their boudoir? In fact, Lin Yi didn't mean to ignore Ning Xuefei. It was just that he was at a critical moment. Not only was he recovering his strength, but the genuine qi in his body was expanding. This was a sign that he was about to break through. Counting the days, it hadn't been a long time since Lin Yi broke through to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage. This time, he didn't take any elixirs to help him level up, and he was seriously injured. Lin Yi never thought that he would break through again so soon. However, although this was unexpected, it made sense when he thought about it carefully. For cultivators, every time they tried their best to be seriously injured, they could further explore the potential in their body. It was a rare transformation. It was not unusual to take this opportunity to break through. Lin Yi himself had experienced this many times. From the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage to the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage was an extremely difficult threshold to cross. However, in comparison, from the middle stage to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage was much easier. With Lin Yi's strong foundation, it was natural for him to break through this stage quickly. Under Ning Xuefei's gaze, Lin Yi urged the genuine qi in his body to move around his body over and over again, looking for a good opportunity to break through in one fell swoop. After a long time, Lin Yi's aura suddenly skyrocketed, startling many of the small ornaments in the room. They all trembled. If Ning Xuefei hadn't protected them with her body, her beloved ornaments would have been destroyed. This state lasted for a while. Finally, Lin Yi slowly withdrew his aura and returned to his usual reserved state. However, the occasional light in his eyes was obviously purer and more terrifying than before. Chapter 40-26. He let out a long breath, feeling refreshed as he stood up. He looked at the curious Ning Xuefei beside him, thinking back to what happened last night. He couldn't help but feel a little awkward. His consciousness wasn't clear at the time, but he could still remember a little of what happened. He broke into a strange woman's room and fell into her bathtub. More importantly, she happened to be taking a bath. Lin Yi could not help but feel guilty just thinking about it. Just when Lin Yi did not know what to say, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the door. They were well trained. It should be the Northern Garrison Guards. "This is the place. I told you there was something wrong here." The first voice sounded familiar. It was the Northern Garrison Guard, who called the door last night pockmarked. Lin Yi was shocked. The Hall of Heroes was on high alert. It was not surprising that the Northern Garrison Guards were attracted by the spiritual energy fluctuation caused by the breakthrough. However, it would be really troublesome if they were caught like this. After all, the Northern Garrison Guards were elites. They had been scared off by Ning Xuefei's background once last night, but now they were suspicious again. Moreover, such a big thing had happened. It was unrealistic to drive them away with just a few words. However, Ning Xuefei winked at Lin Yi, asking him to find a corner to hide. She got up and opened the door. Facing the suspicious northern garrison guards, Ning Xuefei did not give them any chance to ask questions. She started to complain. "What are you doing? Yesterday, I just bid for 2 best-grade foundation-building barrier-breaking pills, and I was at the critical moment of taking them to break through, but I was interrupted by you guys. Now, I failed to break through, and all my efforts were wasted. How can your extreme North Island be like this?" Ning Xuefei said with a wronged expression. Miss Ning." The northern guards looked at each other. Given Ning Xuefei's status, it was not something that they could bear to be the scapegoat for. "You came to disturb me last night. It's not even dawn yet, and you're here to make trouble again. Is this how the extreme North Island treats its guests? Make your steward song pay for my pills tomorrow." Ning Xuefei scolded her angrily. She turned her head and instructed the young servant girl who heard the commotion next door and ran over to serve her. "Xiaoling, go and call the staff of the Hong Chamber of Commerce over. I'll ask him if there are any more top-grade pills. So annoying, they're all wasted." "Ah yes." Little Ling shrunk her head and hurriedly left with small steps. When the northern guard saw this, they did not dare to stay any longer. They bowed and apologized to Ning Xuefei, and then hurriedly scattered. Half an hour later, Xiaoling came back to report. "Miss, I didn't find the employee from the Hong Chamber of Commerce." "Why don't I go ask him again when the sun is up?" Ning Xuefei waved her hand and said, "There's no need. I've already sent someone to find him. There's nothing for you to do here. You can leave first." "Yes." Xiaoling immediately left obediently. Only Ning Xuefei and Lin Yi were left in the room. Ning Xuefei blinked her big eyes and pouted at Lin Yi as if she was asking for credit. "Hey, are you alright? Don't I look very smart?" "I'm fine. Thank you for your help, Miss Ning." Lin Yi nodded gratefully. Ning Xuefei's response had not only gotten the North Guard off the hook, but also given him a legitimate reason to go back later. He didn't expect her to be so resourceful, even though she seemed to be so insensitive. Just as he was worrying about how to repay her, Lin Yi suddenly caught a glimpse of a small wooden box with the Hong Chamber of Commerce's name engraved on the cabinet next to him. It was the 2 top-grade bottleneck-breaking pills that Ning Xuefei had just mentioned. Lin Yi's heart moved, and he immediately said, "I will remember Miss Ning's help. If there is any need in the future, Miss can go to Hong Zhong of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. No matter what elixir you want to refine, don't hesitate to ask. Just say that I agree." Ning Xuefei's beautiful eyes suddenly lit up. She was just thinking about this. She had taken the initiative to help Lin Yi just now, because of this consideration. She did not expect that Lin Yi would take the initiative to ask. She could not help but nod and say, Okay, I won't stand on ceremony." Lin Yi immediately laughed. This girl's temperament was quite similar to his senior sister Shanghai Laner, from the towering pavilion in the North Island. She should also be from a famous cultivation sect. But Shanghai Laner was not so insensitive. Looking at the gradually brightening sky outside, Lin Yi took out the 1,000 silk mask and was about to put it on. He was about to leave. He had forced himself to take off the 1,000 silk mask when he entered the room yesterday. His purpose was to let Miss Ning recognize him instead of driving him out. Otherwise, he could not guarantee that Miss Ning would not betray him to a complete stranger. Although he was grateful to Miss Ning, this place had become a troublesome place. It was easy to get into trouble if he stayed too long. Moreover, Lin Yi deliberately did not ask about her identity. He only knew that the Northern Guard said that her surname was Ning. It might not be a good thing to chat too much at this time. If he wanted to thank her, he could find another chance in the future. "Are you leaving now? Let me see you off. There are many Northern Guard outside. Ordinary people can't go in and out as they please." Ning Xuefei did not try to persuade him to stay. "Then I'll have to trouble you." Lin Yi thought about it and didn't reject the offer. The guy had given him a legitimate excuse, but he was still a stranger. He might give himself away if someone were to come back and check him. The two immediately went out. As expected, the security outside was much tighter than usual. Every corner was guarded by fully armed Northern Guard. Not even a fly could escape. However, when Ning Xuefei saw Lin Yi out from the back door, the Northern Guard did not question him. They just looked at Lin Yi from head to toe, bowed to Ning Xuefei, and raised their hands to let them go. It seemed that Ning Xuefei's performance just now had worked. Otherwise, even if Ning Xuefei was accompanying him, they would not let him go without asking questions. After leaving the Gathering Heroes Hall successfully, Lin Yi let out a sigh of relief. Not only was he relieved, but more importantly from the attitude of the guards, it was obvious that the temporary camouflage he made yesterday had worked. That was to say, Steward Song and the others should have concluded that Zheng Tianjie died because of an explosion. Chapter 40-27. As Lin Yi expected, as soon as Ning Xuefei returned to her residence, the elder who accompanied her in West Island came to find her. Miss, Zheng Tianjie from the Middle Island Alchemy Hall died in an explosion yesterday. Did it affect you? Zheng Tianjie? The loud noise yesterday was caused by the explosion of this guy's alchemy furnace? Ning Xuefei was stunned, then shook her head and said, "No, I thought it was an earthquake. I thought it was just an earthquake." But in private, Ning Xuefei couldn't help guessing that Zheng Tianjie's death might have something to do with the young man from the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Although she was insensitive, her imagination was super strong. Ning Xuefei was just guessing. But at this moment Tian Chan, who was also in the Heroes Gathering Hall, was shocked when she heard the news from her master, Lian Exine. When the accident happened last night, the scene was quickly blocked by the Northern Guard. Tian Chan had no way to know the specific situation. She tossed and turned all night, worrying about how to deal with Zheng Tianjie, and whether Zheng Tianjie would deal with Lin Yi. She didn't expect that after one night, Zheng Tianjie was actually dead? And he was directly killed, because of the explosion of the alchemy furnace? Wasn't this the same way as the junior brother of the alchemy hall, who was framed and killed by her before? In an instant, a figure suddenly appeared in Tian Chan's mind. It was Lin Yi, whom she had just met last night. "Chaner, what's wrong with you?" Seeing that Tian Chan was in a daze after hearing the news, Lian Exine couldn't help but ask curiously. "No, nothing. I just feel that this thing happened too suddenly." Tian Chan quickly covered it up, recalling the situation when she met with Lin Yi last night. Although she felt it was unbelievable, she was almost sure that Lin Yi must be behind this matter. After all, Zheng Tianjie, a master in the early stage of the Gold Core realm, died because of the explosion of the alchemy furnace. This kind of thing was very strange, no matter how she thought about it. In particular, he had a furnace explosion record, so it was hard not to be suspicious. Lian Exine nodded and sighed. Indeed, everything was still fine yesterday, but in the blink of an eye, something like this happened. It can only be said that fate is fickle and nature makes fools of people. However, Zheng Tianjie's death is not necessarily a bad thing for you, Chan Er. I know that you don't like him, and that his character is vile. He is indeed not a good choice for a good man. This way, it will save you a lot of trouble. Master, Zheng Tianjie died because of a furnace explosion during alchemy. Has this matter been settled? Tian Chan cautiously inquired. That's right. This is the unanimous conclusion of Housekeeper Song and the leaders of the other forces. Furthermore, there are indeed traces of a furnace explosion at the scene. There are also large scorch marks on Zheng Tianjie's corpse. This is something that I, along with your martial uncles, can confirm. We can eliminate the suspicion of murder. Lian Exine nodded with certainty. In that case, could it be that Zheng Tianjie was the one who suffered retribution, and it really had nothing to do with Lin Yi? There were so many big shots at the scene, including her own master Lian Exine, who was an expert of the pill hall. If even they were deceived by someone, it would be extremely difficult. Tian Chan couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. However, she still couldn't help but suspect that Lin Yi was related to this matter. However, this was also good. At least, no one would investigate the murderer behind the scenes, and she didn't have to worry about Lin Yi anymore. However, Lian Xian's next words made Tian Chan's heart hang in the air again. Of course, this is only our preliminary conclusion. The real conclusion can only wait until we return to the pill hall. Maybe there will be an unexpected discovery. Tian Chan was immediately on tenterhooks. The pill hall, as a top force of the Middle Island, had a lot of true experts. If this matter was really done by Lin Yi, even if he could deceive these people in the extreme North Island, it was impossible for him to deceive so many experts of the pill hall. Once this matter was exposed, Lin Yi would be in trouble. Alright, this matter happened too suddenly. We can't continue to participate in the following auctions. Chan Air, hurry up and pack your things. We're going back to the Middle Island soon. Lian Xian hurriedly instructed, then immediately turned around and left. Yes. Tian Chan responded absent-mindedly. Her mind was filled with Lin Yi's figure. If it wasn't for the fact that the conditions didn't allow it, she really wanted to find Lin Yi and ask him in person if he did it, so that she wouldn't have to be so worried. An hour later, the group of people from the pill hall gathered at the main entrance of the Heroes Gathering Hall. They brought Zheng Tianjie's charred body and set off for the Middle Island. Watching the people from the pill hall fly away, Lin Yi didn't worry too much. Even if he knew that there were many experts in the pill hall, he was still very confident in his ability to fake the scene. Don't forget that he was a miracle doctor back in the common world. After that, he even obtained Zhang Liju's personal notes. As a result, regarding the situation of Zheng Tianjie's body, even if he didn't dare to say that it was flawless, very few people would be able to see through it. Unless that person was his cheap Shifu, Zhang Liju himself, or Old Lin also came from the common world to the Middle Island. Compared to Zheng Tianjie's death, Lin Yi was more worried about Tian Chan's situation. Although he didn't have Zheng Tianjie to worry about, from the past actions of his grandpa, the vice elder of the pill hall, he shouldn't be a good person. When the time came, it wasn't impossible for him to vent his anger on Tian Chan. After all, everyone knew that the reason why Zheng Tianjie had opened the cauldron to concoct the beauty pill was to make Tian Chan happy. He died from the cauldron explosion, and it was almost obvious that the vice elder of the pill hall would vent his anger on Tian Chan. However, with Lin Yi's current strength and background, he couldn't even go to the Middle Island. No matter how much he worried, it was futile. For now, he could only hope that Tian Chan could deal with it herself. Just as Lin Yi raised his head and watched Tian Chan and the others leave, Hong Zhong appeared behind him with a face full of joy. He said excitedly, "Young hero Lin, your appointment letter has been sent back to the Middle Island headquarters. It has been officially registered." So fast. Lin Yi was slightly startled. From last night until now, it had only been 12 hours. The reaction speed of the headquarters of the Hong Merchant Association was really shocking. Hee, this is actually not strange. Our Hong Merchant Association is the second top merchant association in the Merchant Alliance. The auction this time is of great importance. If we reacted slowly, wouldn't we be sitting ducks? To be honest, this time even our president himself was personally waiting by the teleportation circle for news. This time, he was also the first to see the news. Hong Zhong smiled. Chapter 4028. Same to you. From now on, young hero Lin will be the honorary vice president and a member of the senior management of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Among the 3 pavilions on the North Island, you're the only one with such an honor. Hong Zhong sighed from the bottom of his heart. Lin Yi, a newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion, had become the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. It was a legend if it was spread out. I'm just an honorary vice president, while you, Mr. Hong, are the vice president with real power. We're not at the same level at all. I'll have to ask you to take care of me in the future, Lin Yi said modestly. This was the truth. Although the credit belonged to Lin Yi, the biggest beneficiary was Hong Zhong. He was promoted from the manager of the North Island branch to the vice president of the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, second only to the president and the executive vice president. He was almost the third in command. This kind of promotion speed was no different from riding a rocket. Young hero Lin, you're flattering this old man. With young hero Lin's shocking ability, not to mention the vice president, even if I were to sit in the president's position, I would still have to rely on you. Hong Zhong shook his head and burst into laughter. Then he sighed and said, however, it's true that time makes the hero. I've been working hard for decades, but I've been stuck in the position of the manager of the North Island branch. Now that I've experienced a crisis, I'm suddenly promoted to the position of vice president. It's unreal. There's an old saying in the secular world. Risk and benefit are always proportional. Linny nodded. Thanks to young hero Lin, I was able to get out of danger this time. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't even be able to keep my position as the manager of the branch. I would have become a scapegoat for those above me. I wouldn't have the glory I have today, Hong Zhong said with lingering fear. There were no flashes of swords in the business world, but the dangers within were far greater. Even Hong Zhong couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat when he thought about the sudden crisis. Thank goodness he had Lin Yi with him. While the two of them were talking, the new day of the auction had already begun in the clamor. Hong Zhong immediately suggested, although the mission has been completed, the Four Islands auction is a rare opportunity. If young hero Lin has no objections, we can stay on this extreme North Island for 2 more days. If you see anything good on the way, young hero Lin can just tell me, and I will definitely help you get it. It will be a token of my gratitude. Young hero Lin, please don't refuse. Seeing that Hong Zhong was so sincere, Lin Yi naturally couldn't refuse. He nodded and said, well, thank you in advance, Mr. Hong. I also want to see what good is there. This time he owed Hong Zhong too much. If he didn't let Hong Zhong compensate him in private, the other party would feel apologetic. This kind of feeling might not be a good thing if it accumulated for a long time. Moreover, it wasn't suitable for long-term cooperation in the future. He might as well let Hong Zhong ease his feelings a little. In any case, Hong Zhong didn't look like someone who lacks spiritual jades. Compared to yesterday's auction, although the scale of today's auction was a bit lower, if one were to talk about the oddities of the items being auctioned, it would definitely surpass the previous one. It was an eye-opener. There were many things that even the professional experts present couldn't explain. They could only vaguely evaluate that this item was extraordinary, and the specific uses needed to be explored. Lin Yi had always been very interested in these strange things. Even if he couldn't figure out the truth, there was still a ghostly thing that had lived for thousands or tens of thousands of years in the space of the jade pendant. He could more or less see something. If he wasn't careful, he might accidentally find a treasure like the starring stone. Wouldn't that be a big profit? However, it wasn't only Lin Yi who was interested in these strange things. The others also had the same thoughts of picking up leftovers, especially Nan Tianba's group. Because of the existence of Yu Zhe, who had read a lot, their ability to pick up leftovers was far beyond that of ordinary people. While Lin Yi was busy picking up leftovers with these people, Tian Chan had already followed the people from the pill hall and Zheng Tianjie's corpse back to the Middle Island. After hearing the news of Zheng Tianjie's death, the pill hall, which had always been quiet, suddenly erupted. Especially Zheng Tianjie's grandfather, the vice head of the pill hall, Zheng Dongjue, almost fainted on the spot. Zheng Tianjie was the only master of the golden core stage among his grandchildren. And he was also a refiner. He had unlimited potential, and he had always had high hopes for him. He was being groomed as a successor, and now, after a trip to the extreme North Island, he came back as a charred corpse. How could he accept this? Who did it? These 2 words came out of Zheng Dongjue's hoarse voice, as if it came from hell. It made all the disciples of the pill hall tremble in fear. Other than Zhang Liju and a few other disciples, everyone else was trembling under Zheng Dongjue's aggressive gaze. In the end, an elder who led the team to the northernmost island this time had no choice but to bite the bullet and stand up to explain. Deputy Hall Master. Young Master Zheng's death was not a homicide, but when he was refining pills last night, his cauldron accidentally exploded. Cauldron exploded? Zheng Dongjue looked at him coldly enraged. Tianjie was a level 4 refiner, and a master of the golden core stage. How dare you say that he died from a cauldron explosion? Why don't you blow one up for me? This elder was so scared that he shrunk his neck, speechless. One couldn't blame Zheng Dongjue for reacting like this. In fact, even these people found it hard to believe at first, but after checking the scene and the corpse, they finally came to the conclusion that it was a cauldron explosion. Humph. I don't believe this stupid conclusion of yours at all. Go get all the elders here, I'll check again. Zheng Dongjue gritted his teeth and roared. As the vice head of the pill hall, when Zhang Liju wasn't here, Zheng Dongjue was pretty much the final decision-maker in the pill hall. Even those elders with high positions wouldn't go against him easily, much less something like this. Seeing that all the elders had arrived, Tian Chan's heart suddenly jumped to her throat. Everyone in front of her was a famous big shot in Middle Island. Putting aside their identity as super alchemists, whether it was their strength or their foresight, they were far from ordinary people. Especially when it came to the inspection of a cauldron explosion, they were the experts among the experts. Holding her breath, Tian Chan watched as all the elders went up to check the corpses one by one. She had never felt so nervous before, afraid that these people would notice something unusual. Chapter 4029. How is this possible? Zheng Dongju did not give up, and personally went forward to check on his grandson's body. However, judging from the various signs on his body, especially the burns that were clearly caused by the pill fire, any expert alchemist could see that Zheng Tianjie had indeed died from the explosion of the furnace. This time, Zheng Dongju himself was speechless as he fell to the ground in a daze. If Zheng Tianjie was killed by someone else, then no matter how he flared up, no matter how he pursued the matter, it would not be too much. But now that he died from the explosion of the furnace during alchemy, other than blaming himself for being stupid, who else could he blame? Tian Chan heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that. As long as it had nothing to do with Lin Yi, then no matter how Zheng Tianjie died, it didn't matter. This was the retribution that God gave him. He deserved to die. However, Zheng Dongju was silent for a moment before he suddenly stood up from the ground and said, any alchemist, unless they have no other choice, would absolutely not refine pills in an unfamiliar place. They are afraid of accidents like the explosion of the furnace. Now this hall master wants to know, for no reason, why did Tianjie suddenly think of refining pills in the northern island? Everyone who was going to the northern island couldn't help but focus their eyes on Tian Chan. Tian Chan was shocked. Just now she was still worried for Lin Yi, and she didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, she would be in danger. Zheng Dongju was not a good person to begin with, and now that he was immersed in the pain of losing his grandson, once he vented his anger on her, he could do anything. Could it be because of you, bitch? Zheng Dongju's gaze suddenly turned cold. Of course, he knew what kind of person his grandson was. Previously, for the sake of this woman who came from the secular world, he disregarded his dignity and pestered her. He even wanted Zheng Dongju to put down his old face and help him get engaged. In order to please this bitch, he opened the furnace to refine pills in the northern island. Only Zheng Tianjie would do such a stupid thing. Zheng Dongju's face was unfriendly as he approached Tian Chan step by step. He didn't like this lowly woman, who came from the secular world. Now he even caused the death of his most beloved grandson. How could he allow such a scourge to remain in the pill hall? Vice Hall Master, Zheng Tianjie clearly died because his cauldron exploded while he was refining pills. If you want to blame Chan or a woman, don't you think it's a little embarrassing? Lian Xian saw that the situation was bad. He quickly stepped forward and stood in front of Tian Chan. Humph. You didn't teach your disciples properly. This hall master hasn't even settled the score with you. Yet you still dare to stand out and protect my traitorous disciple. My great-grandson died in the hands of you bitches. The heavens were truly blind. Men, arrest the two of them for this hall master. Zheng Dongjue waved his hand and ordered in an overbearing manner. Lian Xian and Tian Chan looked at each other, their hearts sinking. Now that the head Zhang Liju wasn't here, and the other disciples were all staying out of this, the entire Hall of Elixir had become Zheng Dongjue's word. If they really were to be arrested and punished like this, they wouldn't be able to escape. The consequences of having one's cultivation, and even one's divine sense crippled were unimaginable. However, if they dared to resist in public, the consequences would be even more severe. No one would dare say no even if they were to be killed on the spot. Just as the two of them were stuck between a rock and a hard place, a voice came from the door, causing everyone present to freeze. Just because of a little bit of anger, you want to be punished by the hall law? I don't even know when the pill hall became a gang. The voice came from the doorway. However, by the time everyone reacted, this figure had already appeared in the middle of the lobby. He was wearing a familiar black robe, looking like an immortal. Out of this world, this was the head of the Elixir Hall, the legendary Elixir Saint Zhang Liju. Greetings, head. Everyone present knelt down at the same time and kowtowed respectfully. Even Zheng Dongjue, who had always been high and mighty, could only obediently pay his respects with a stiff expression. Zhang Liju, this miracle Dr. Dan wasn't just a legend on the outside. He was a god within the Hall of Elixir. All the disciples worshipped him from the bottom of their hearts, and his fame and reputation were far above that of the vice head Zheng Dongjue. Zhang Liju had always been secretive, and when he was out, Zheng Dongjue could do whatever he wanted. But now that he was back, Zheng Dongjue didn't even dare to fart. Zhang Liju didn't even need to do anything. Just a word from him was enough to make him fall to the ground. Get up. Zhang Liju waved his hand and looked at Lian Xen and Tian Chan. Don't be scared. Our pill hall is a place for elixirs. As long as you don't go against your masters, no one will dare to do anything to you. Lian Xen and Tian Chan were overjoyed and nodded. Yes, thank you for your kindness, head. Zheng Dongjue gritted his teeth on the side, but there was nothing he could do. Even if he had 10 times more courage, he wouldn't dare go against Zhang Liju's words in front of everyone. He could only hold it in. With that, Zhang Liju turned his head and looked at Zheng Tianjie's body in front of him. Huh. He looked at the wounds on the body and couldn't help but think, a playful smile on his face. Zheng Dongjue thought that Zhang Liju had found something fishy, and since it was his grandson's death, he didn't dare to be careless. Head, is there anything wrong? Wrong. Zhang Liju glanced at him. Of course not. He's a 4th-level refiner, and he died from an explosion. Since when did our pill hall become so lousy? Zheng Dongjue, there's something wrong with your management. Wah. Zheng Dongjue almost choked to death. He couldn't hide the sadness on his face. His grandson died, and he said there was something wrong with his management. However, Zheng Dongjue didn't dare say anything in front of Zhang Liju. He could only hold his nose and admit, "You're right, head. I will try my best to improve in the future. I won't let you down." Tian Chan looked at Zheng Dongjue's reaction and couldn't help but feel happy. At the same time, she was a little puzzled. Looking at Zhang Liju's reaction, it was obvious that he had found something. But for some reason, he didn't say anything. What she didn't know was that Zhang Liju had indeed found something strange on Zheng Tianjie's body. As the publicly recognized pill saint, no matter how good Lin Yi's disguise was, there was no way he could hide it from him. Chapter 40-30. But the combination of qi and refinement fire would produce unparalleled power. And this was something very few people in the world knew about. Even Zhang Liju himself had only discovered it by accident and recorded it in his notes. The chances of a normal person knowing about this was next to nothing. So, although Zhang Liju was confused, he didn't say it out in front of everyone. Alright, this matter ends here. You can all leave now. Zhang Liju waved his hand and dismissed the crowd. With him saying it himself, no matter how much Dongjue disagreed with him, he couldn't do anything about it. Zheng Tianjie's death was final. After saying that, Zhang Liju disappeared right in front of everyone's eyes. He came and went without a trace, just like a master. According to his usual style, after disappearing, he would most likely travel the world again. Who knew how long it would be before he showed up in front of everyone again? But even if Zhang Liju was nowhere to be seen, since he had already said this, no one would dare disobey him. Even if Zheng Dongjue wanted to go against him, he wouldn't have the guts to do so. Zheng Dongjue stared at Lian Xen and Tian Chan with hatred in his eyes. All right, since the hall master has forgiven you 2 of your sins, I can let it go. But Tian-chan and my grandson, Tianjia, had an engagement. Although he's gone now, the engagement is still valid. I want to hold a ghost marriage for them. As soon as the words were spoken, everyone at the scene was stunned speechless. The so-called engagement was just something that Zheng Tianjia had been pestering Tian-chan, wanting Dongjue to help them get engaged. Until now, it was just a one-sided talk. There was no actual ceremony at all. And he had the cheek to say that there was an engagement? Zheng Tianjia died from the explosion of the furnace, but Tian-chan, a beautiful girl, had to marry a dead man for no reason at all. Zhang Liju had just left. And Zheng Dongjue was acting like a tyrant. Wasn't he a little too much? No, this is Chan'er's lifelong happiness. Vice Hall Master, don't go too far. Lien Xian hurriedly stood up and stopped him. With her status and strength, although she was far from being able to go against Zheng Dongjue, she was still Tian-chan's master. She couldn't turn a blind eye to this matter. Humph, do you think you have the right to speak here? Why aren't you scramming to the side? Zheng Dongjue's eyes flashed with a vicious glint. Although Zhang Liju had said in front of everyone that he couldn't punish the master and disciple, if he really wanted to, there were at least 100 ways to make these 2 bitches live a life worse than death, and no one could find fault with them. Lien Xian still wanted to insist, but at this time, Tian-chan, who was behind her, gently tugged on her sleeve. Master, there's no need. Your disciple will agree to him. What? Everyone was shocked again, including Zheng Dongjue. They could not help but be slightly taken aback. Any normal girl wouldn't agree to a ghost marriage with a dead person so easily, right? Not to mention, the so-called marriage contract that Tian-chan was carrying was a non-existent thing from start to finish. If that's the case, then prepare yourself. The day of the burial is the day of the marriage. According to my original plan, you should be buried alive with Tianjia to accompany him. But in order to not let the hall master misunderstand, I'll let you stay alive to guard his coffin. Zheng Dongjue looked deeply at Tian-chan. Tian-chan nodded silently. With Zhang Liju's words as a guarantee, Zheng Dongjue definitely wouldn't let her be buried with Zheng Tianjia. This was something that she had expected, and that was why she agreed to it. Marrying a dead man in the prime of her lifetime. This was an extremely tragic thing for anyone, especially Tian-chan, who was a disciple of the Hall of Elixirs with a bright future. This was a nightmare, but in Tian-chan's eyes, this was even better. Middle Island was the gathering place for various forces. Naturally, there were many hedonistic young masters like Zheng Tianjia. As the saying goes, beauty is the source of trouble. With Tian-chan's beauty, it was easy for her to attract trouble. Even if Zheng Tianjia died, there would be a second and a third one in the future. Now, with the title of widow, coupled with Zheng Dongjue's influence, no one would dare to pursue and harass Tian-chan in the future. Plus, the situation just now was very clear. If she rejected, Zheng Dongjue could find even more vicious ways to punish her and her disciple. Tian-chan might as well just agree. As for this so-called engagement, when her strength reached a certain level in the future, she could cancel it with just a word. Just like Zhang Liju, who dared to go against his words. So the only thing she had to do now was to endure, train hard, and wait patiently for that day to come. Zheng Tianjia's death had finally come to an end. Because of Zhang Liju's silence, Lin Yi, who was far away in the North Island, had successfully escaped. But now he had encountered a new problem. Because he had successfully gotten rid of Zheng Tianjia, not only did he solve Tian-chan's problem, but he also got back the 10-piece weapon set that he had lost. For Lin Yi, this trip to the Northern Island could be said to be a success. However, where there were people, there would be Jianghu. And where there would be Jianghu, there would be conflicts and killings. Especially this time, Nan Tianba and the others had also come to the extreme North Island. In the next few days of the auction, with Hong Zhong's support, Lin Yi could be said to have gained a lot. He got his hands on a few rare treasures. Although he couldn't tell what they were used for, at least he could be sure that the items that Lin Yi had his eyes on were not ordinary useless items. In the future, if there was a suitable opportunity, they might shine brightly. Whatever Lin Yi had his eyes on, Yuja from Nan Tianba's group also had their eyes on. It was a pity that their wealth was not on the same level as Lin Yi's backer, Hong Zhong, who was a super tycoon. Hong Zhong wanted to repay Lin Yi wholeheartedly. Because of this, how could he easily let the things that Lin Yi had his eyes on go to someone else? Unless he met a sucker like Zheng Tianjia. Otherwise, Nan Tianba and his group had no ability to compete with him at all. Damn it! Every time I saw a treasure, it was taken away by that bastard. If I didn't guess wrong, those treasures are not only useful for the masters at the foundation establishment stage, but even for the masters at the golden core stage or higher. They should have unexpected uses. They are all good things that can only be found by luck. Yuja rolled his eyes and gritted his teeth. Chapter 40-31. Haha, it's good that he won it. We don't have to waste our spiritual jades. Later, we'll snatch them all together with the starring stone. Nan Tianba sneered indifferently and glanced at Lin Yi and Hong Zhong in the distance. The two were receiving the auction items, and seemed to be ready to call it a day. Just as they guessed, Lin Yi and Hong Zhong were ready to go home. Lin Yi was still a newcomer in the welcome pavilion. Even if he had the help of his senior brother, he couldn't leave for too long. Hong Zhong was going to report to Middle Island soon, so they all had their own things to do. After saying goodbye to Steward Song, the two immediately boarded the flying spiritual beasts and set off for North Island. Young hero Lin, it seems that this return trip won't be so peaceful. Hong Zhong suddenly looked back and shook his head slightly. Indeed, we've just left the patrol area of the Northern Guard. These people are really impatient. Lin Yi nodded. This time, he had broken through to the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm, so his range of perception had increased a lot. He had already noticed the people following behind him. Before he finished speaking, the flying spiritual beasts behind him suddenly sped up and caught up with them in the blink of an eye. Moreover, there was more than one of them. Old man over there, hurry up and hand over the spiritual jades and treasures, or I'll throw you down to feed the sea monsters. A masked man with a hedgehog's head laughed hideously. Then, on the other flying spiritual beast, a feminine man with wavy long hair sneered. Don't even think about running away. It's useless. The flying spiritual beasts under your feet are just the most useless ones. You want to get rid of the flying spiritual beasts under our feet? That's just a pipe dream, so I advise you to be sensible. If you cooperate, I can guarantee that I'll only rob you of your treasures, not your lives. Lin Yi and Hong Zhong looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. There were 4 or 5 people standing on the backs of the 2 flying spiritual beasts in front of them. Although each of them was not weak, they were at least in the late stage of the foundation establishment realm. The leader, the man with the hedgehog's head and long hair, was at the peak of the foundation establishment realm. However, with just this level of strength, he dared to rob the 2 of them. They really didn't know what to say. It would have been fine if they had only targeted Lin Yi, but now that an unfathomable super expert like Hong Zhong was right beside them, they actually had the guts to rush over. Their courage was simply commendable. Little did they know, this group of people were fearless because they didn't know. Hong Zhong had always hidden his strength and had always presented himself as an amiable businessman. Very few people knew of his true strength. In the eyes of outsiders, Hong Zhong was merely a businessman. If he was already extremely powerful, then why would the Hong Chamber of Commerce hire so many foreign experts? Was it because they had too many spiritual jades? Seeing that the 2 of them had a strange expression on their faces, yet they did not say anything, the man with the hedgehog hair immediately said angrily, "Fuck, are you too tired of living? Hurry up and hand over the things. I'll count to 3. If you don't hand over the spiritual jades and treasures obediently, then don't blame me for not letting you live. 1, 2. Just as the man with the hedgehog hair was about to count to 3, Lin Yi suddenly spoke. Instead of begging for mercy as everyone expected, he said with a face full of sarcasm, "Heroes of the underworld, may I ask a question? Did you all become a monk halfway through your training?" What do you mean? The masked men were all stunned after hearing that. Lin Yi shrugged and said with a faint smile, "Nothing. I was just thinking, since you all have your faces covered, why don't you put away your waist tag as well? Why didn't you put away your waist tag as well? Isn't that very unprofessional?" Jie. The masked men were shocked and hurriedly looked down in panic. Then their gazes finally focused on the leader of the group, the man with the hedgehog hair. He had a yellow waist tag on his waist, engraved with the words Wantong, which was clearly the symbol of the Wantong Grand Assembly. Under the gaze of everyone, even with his face covered, the embarrassment of the man with the hedgehog hair could be seen. His face was so red that it reached the roots of his ears. Clowns who can't be seen in public. Hong Zhong shook his head speechlessly. The people in front of him were not worthy of his attention. What he was referring to was naturally the all-access gathering. Although Hong Zhong was the one who was jointly targeted by the previous evil plan, as a businessman, he still had to praise his clever means. But now, it was obvious that they had lost, but they still used the inferior trick of sending people to rob them, which was looked down upon. Even if they sent people to rob them, they should at least send a more powerful person. Sending such a group of idiots with neither strength nor brains. Was this an insult to people's intelligence? Being watched by his men behind him, especially by the long-haired man on the other side, the hedgehog hair suddenly became angry. "What are you looking at? Even if my identity is exposed anyway, this kid and the old man must die. As long as they are fed to the sea monster, no one will know." Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh after listening. Feeding the sea monster is such an interesting thing. I think it is more suitable for a man with a temperament like you. How about you give us a demonstration first? Demonstration? Demonstration your ass. The man with the hedgehog hair scolded, immediately picked up the giant machete beside him, and shouted, "Get over there, I will chop him alive today." Several people behind him showed their weapons with ferocious faces. At the same time, a group of people led by the long-haired man also flanked Lin Yi from the other side. Hong Zhong was about to make a move, but he saw that Lin Yi had already made a move before him. Having just been promoted to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment, Lin Yi wanted to test his strength, especially the move that he had recently developed. Condensing true qi in one hand and alchemy fire in the other, before the hedgehog hair group could get close, Lin Yi had already put his hands together, and then condensed a super bomb in his hand, and directly bombarded it. Boom! With a loud explosion, the calm sea suddenly set off a huge wave, and a small mushroom cloud appeared in the sky, which did not disperse for a long time. Such a shocking movement directly stunned the long-haired man and his group. When they saw the hedgehog head and his group, who had clearly been blasted into charred black corpses, fell into the vast sea together with the ferocious birds and spirit beasts, and were eaten by several ferocious sea beasts in the blink of an eye. Everyone was so scared that they almost peed their pants. Chapter 40-32. You're lying. Such a terrifying fiend actually pretended to be an expert at the peak of the middle stage of the foundation establishment realm. Wasn't he too good at pretending? It's your turn next. Lin Yi turned his head and smiled gently at them. Fuck. The long-haired man was so scared that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. His face turned pale, and he hurriedly shouted at his subordinates. Why are you still not running? Do you want to accompany that stupid hedgehog head down to feed the sea monster? I'm telling you, the center will avenge us. After saying that, the group of people hurriedly whipped the spirit birds under their feet and ran away at full speed. One of them lost his footing and fell directly into the sea. He was swallowed by the sea monster below, but they didn't care at all. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared before Lin Yi's eyes. The speed of this spirit beast is quite fast indeed. Lin Yi paused, not at all surprised. He'd wanted to kill them all in one go, but he didn't expect the mount to be this fast. What did he threaten us with before he left? What did he mean? But it didn't matter. He wasn't afraid that others would see his trick. They only saw Zheng Tianji's body, and didn't see the power of Lin Yi's alchemic fire Jin Qi bomb. The bodies of the people killed by Lin Yi fell directly into the sea, and were eaten by the sea monster. It was impossible for others to see them carefully, not to mention that Zheng Tianjia's body was disguised by Lin Yi. However, before he left, the man threatened Lin Yi, but he didn't hear it clearly. That's natural. Spirit birds have always been known for their speed, but they can't carry as much weight as ordinary flying spirit beasts. Moreover, ordinary people can't control them, and the flight process is not stable enough, so it's not suitable for our Chamber of Commerce. Hong Zhong paused, and then said with concern, I didn't hear it clearly either. I guess they formed a group of interests. Young hero Lin, are you okay? Although Hong Zhong was amazed by Lin Yi's performance just now, he could also tell that Lin Yi had suffered some injuries. It's nothing. It's just a minor injury, Lin Yi said with a nonchalant smile as he circulated the mantra in his body to heal himself. Even if he only used it at the lowest level, the power of this killer move, which was a combination of the vital qi bomb and the core fire bomb, was enough to instantly kill an expert in the great completion of the foundation establishment stage. However, the price he had to pay was also not small, because if he used it at close range, he himself would also suffer from a considerable backlash. Although he could enter the space of the jade pendant to heal quickly, and Lin Yi could afford this price, if he used it in actual combat, it would still be a move that risked his life. With one move, regardless of whether the opponent died or not, he would be the first to be heavily injured. This was a huge disadvantage. In addition, although the time needed to accumulate qi for this move was obviously much shorter than that of the vital qi bomb, it was still much slower than conventional martial arts. If the opponent had not spoken so much nonsense just now, Lin Yi was afraid that he would not have had the chance to prepare. It could be seen that this move was powerful, but if it wanted to become a conventional killer move, he would need to think of ways to continuously improve it in the future. That's good, young hero Lin, have a good rest. Hong Zhong nodded at Lin Yi and did not ask too much. From Lin Yi's shocking move just now, Hong Zhong could actually easily guess that the death of Zheng Tianjia from Middle Island Alchemy Hall was most likely caused by Lin Yi. However, he did not intend to ask too much. If Lin Yi wanted to say, he would naturally say it. Since he did not want to say, then he would pretend that he did not know. In his eyes, there was no difference between Zheng Tianjia and the person from the Universal Chamber of Commerce who was killed just now. They were all competitors of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As long as they threatened the Hong Chamber of Commerce, they would be killed without mercy. Lin Yi replied with a hmm. Just as he was sitting cross-legged, he heard the sound of an extremely fast bird flying behind him. Those people actually had the guts to go and return. Could it be that they saw that he was injured? Lin Yi was slightly stunned, but he immediately knew that he was wrong. This time, there were only 3 people chasing after him. Did you all see that move just now? Martial nephew, what do you think? Nan Tianba asked one of the people behind him in a deep voice. Reporting to martial uncle, although it was too far away, and I couldn't see it clearly, I can confirm that this feeling was exactly the same as when Master was killed. It can be seen that Lin Yi is definitely second Lin. Yuja said confidently. Then what are we waiting for? Big brother, let's hurry up and catch up. Nan Tianmen couldn't wait any longer. He was now only 1 step away from the gold core stage. His desire for the star ink stone was stronger than anyone else's. Good. It seems that after that kid used that move just now, he's already exhausted. As for that old man Hong Zhong, he's just a businessman. I've been in the North Island for so many years, but I've never heard of him being an expert. There's nothing to worry about. Let's do it. Nan Tianba ordered with a grin. In a moment, the bird that Nan Tianba and the other 2 were riding on had already appeared above Lin Yi and Hong Zhong's head. Sure enough, they caught up. These 3 people are really lingering around. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. Back at the auction, he had already noticed the existence of these 3 people. At that time, he was really surprised for a while, but he didn't pay attention to them. Above his head, Nan Tianba said arrogantly, Should I call you Lin Yi? Or should I call you by another name, Second Lin? My third brother, Nan Tianyong. Was it you who killed him? Lin Yi was about to speak, but Hong Zhong pressed down on his shoulder. indicating that he didn't need to pay attention to him and just focus on healing his injuries. Not talking? That means you're admitting it. The hatred of killing my master is absolutely irreconcilable. Martial uncles, please help this disciple. Yuja pretended to have a sorrowful expression and wailed heartbreakingly. I don't need you to say it. Nan Tianmen curled his lips and pointed at Lin Yi. I'll give you two choices. One is to throw you down to feed the sea beasts and die without a complete corpse. The other is to take the initiative to hand over the starring stone and the treasures you've been auctioning these past 2 days. Of course you'll still die, but I'll leave your corpse intact. Choose for yourself. Hee, I'm going to die either way. You're still as overbearing as ever. Hong Zhong suddenly laughed. However, last time, I only threw you onto the street to embarrass myself. This time in the vast sea, if you get thrown down again, you'll lose your life. Chapter 40-33. Old Man Hong Zhong, listen up. This is the vast North Sea, not your Hong Merchants Association. There aren't any guest officials who can stand up for you. If you don't know what's good for you, I'll make sure you die together with this kid. Threaten the Southern Heavenly Gate. Oh, from what you're saying, if I just stand by and watch, you'll let me live? Hong Zhong said in surprise. That's right. We're looking for this brat purely to avenge our third brother. We don't have any intention of going against the Hong Merchant Guild. Of course, there's a prerequisite. Shopkeeper Hong better not come out and get in the way. After all, fists and feet have no eyes. If you accidentally get hurt, then there's nothing we can do. This time, it was Nan Tianba who spoke. If they killed Lin Yi here, they weren't afraid that Hong Zhong would go back and tell others. With the righteous reason of avenging their third brother, Nan Tianyong, this was purely a grudge of the Jianghu. Even the higher-ups of the 3 great pavilions wouldn't interfere, and would turn a blind eye to it. However, if they killed Hong Zhong to hide the news, it wouldn't be a good thing for Nan Tianba and the others. No matter what, Hong Zhong was an important figure in the Hong Merchant Guild. Even if they did it secretly, the Hong Merchant Guild would still be able to find some clues. At that time, they wouldn't be able to walk away unscathed. So that's how it is. It seems like you guys are quite tactful. You clearly had the opportunity to take advantage of me, yet you still maintain such restraint. You're worthy of praise. Hong Zhong said unhurriedly. Then he changed the topic. Unfortunately, you are still too stupid. What did you say? Nan Tianba's expression darkened. Southern Skygate. And Yuja also had unfriendly expressions. I said, you guys are too stupid. You actually thought that I would just stand by and watch young hero Lin's matter. If this isn't stupid, then what is? Hong Zhong laughed mockingly. My relationship with young hero Lin is not something you can imagine. We've known each other for a long time. Lin Yi was slightly startled. He didn't understand the meaning of Hong Zhong's last sentence. Known each other for a long time? Was he trying to prove something to Nan Tianba? Old man, you're courting death. The South Heaven Gate's expression turned hideous, but it was filled with a hint of joy. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of the influence of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would have dismembered Hong Zhong to vent the hatred in his heart. Originally, he didn't have this opportunity because Nan Tianba wouldn't have allowed him to do so. But now, Hong Zhong was courting death, and he couldn't stop him even if he wanted to, so he couldn't blame anyone else. Shopkeeper Hong, I'll say it again. I don't want to become enemies with the Hong Merchant Guild, and I don't have any intention of killing you. You better know what's good for you. I'm sure you've heard that I'm not a very patient person. Killing someone on this vast ocean is just a small matter, Nan Tianba said with a gloomy expression. I've naturally heard of the 3 heroes of the Nan clan. However, aren't you a little too confident if you think you can scare me with just that? Hong Zhong's expression became a little playful. It looks like you're really courting death. Then I won't stop you. Die in peace, old thing. Nan Tianba suddenly stood up, emitting a terrifying aura from his body. Even the spiritual beast under his feet was trembling in fear, as if it was unable to maintain its posture. However, the weak spiritual beast did not show any reaction from Hong Zhong and Lin Yi. It was as if Nan Tianba's aura could not affect it at all. Deadly Overlord Fist. Nan Tianba's figure was like a savage demon god. The simple punch was accompanied by an incomparably domineering aura. Even the surface of the ocean, that was tens of feet below, began to ripple. The South Heaven Gate and Yuzha were behind him. They looked at Hong Zhong and Lin Yi as if they were looking at dead people. Even among the Golden Core stage experts, Nan Tianba was considered a troublesome character. With just a weak old man like Hong Zhong and Lin Yi's insignificant strength, they would not be able to withstand even a single attack. The only thing they needed to pay attention to right now was to make sure that the two of them didn't fall into the sea. After all, they hadn't gotten their hands on the Star Inkstone and those other rare treasures yet. If they killed the two of them and missed out on the treasures, that would be a huge joke. However, facing Nan Tianba's shocking killing move, both Lin Yi and Hong Zhong maintained a calm expression, as if nothing had happened. Lin Yi was still sitting cross-legged to heal his injuries, while Hong Zhong did not put his opponent in his eyes at all. Hong Zhong watched helplessly as the life-stealing overlord fist was about to reach his head. Finally, he lazily stretched out a hand and swatted it, as if he was swatting a fly. Then, a giant golden palm suddenly appeared beside Nan Tianba and sent him flying with a single slap. Ha! The South Heaven Gate and Yuzha were both dumbfounded. As a Golden Core stage expert, not only did Nan Tianba not kill his opponent instantly, he was also sent flying by Hong Zhong's palm. Wasn't this too miraculous of a turn of events? Luckily, the two of them had been preparing to fish up Hong Zhong and Lin Yi's corpses. Now they were able to catch Nan Tianba before he fell into the ocean. Otherwise, no matter how strong Nan Tianba was, once he fell into the ocean, he would only become food for the sea beasts. There was no other possibility. After being caught by the South Heaven Gate and Yuzha, Nan Tianba was still in a state of shock from the slap. After a long time, he finally regained his senses. When he looked at Hong Zhong again, his expression was astonishingly filled with an unprecedented fear. As for the South Heaven Gate and Yuzha, they looked as if they had seen a ghost. Even Nan Tianba was sent flying by a single slap. If it was them instead, wouldn't they be slapped to the ground? He was clearly just a businessman. How could this ordinary-looking old man have such terrifying strength? Seeing that your uncle has some connections with my Hong Merchant Guild, I won't kill you this time. However, if there is a next time, and you dare to jump up and down in front of me again, you better be prepared to die. A terrifying murderous intent suddenly flashed across Hong Zhong's calm expression. Before this, he was still somewhat concerned about Nan Tianba's background. However, now that he was the vice president of the Hong Merchant Guild, Hong Zhong could be considered a person with real power, even in the Middle Island, which was full of influential people. He was basically on the same level as Zheng Dongjue, so there was no need for him to be afraid. Even if he were to kill Nan Tianba, there wouldn't be too much trouble. However, he hadn't gone back to report on his new job yet. If he was too arrogant, it would be easy for others to criticize him. Chapter 40-34. Nan Tianba was completely scared out of his wits. Nan Tianmen and Yuzha did not have the guts to fight against the unfathomable Hong Zhong. They could only timidly nod their heads. Why aren't you scramming? Hong Zhong narrowed his eyes. The spirit beast beneath Nan Tianba and the other two instantly became frightened birds. It desperately flapped its wings and quickly fled. Elder Hong, thank you this time. Lin Yi slowly opened his eyes. Not at all, it's just a small matter. However, these people are not easy to deal with. Although they will restrain themselves a bit when they return to the northern island, young hero Lin should still be a bit more vigilant. Hong Zhong reminded him. Thank you for the reminder. Lin Yi smiled. With his current strength, he still could not deal with an expert like Nan Tianba. However, it was more than enough to protect himself. In his phone, he still had a trump card that he had not used yet. On the other side, Nan Tianba and the other two finally let out a sigh of relief after fleeing for half an hour. Only when they were several hundred kilometers away from Hong Zhong and Lin Yi did they slowly calm down. Among the three of them, none of them had thought that this would be the result. They originally thought that with Nan Tianba personally making a move, it would be a piece of cake. But in the end, they had actually kicked such a shocking iron plate. Yuja. Nan Tianba suddenly opened his mouth weakly. This time, his injuries were not too serious. The key was that the psychological blow he suffered was too great. It was like falling from the clouds to the ground. Here, great martial uncle. Yuja quickly pulled himself together and stepped forward. Nan Tianba looked at Yuja and suddenly raised his hand to slap his face. Yuja was caught off guard and was almost slapped off the back of the spirit beast. Fortunately, he grabbed the saddle and was able to keep his life. With great difficulty, he climbed back onto the back of the spirit beast. Before Yuja could steady himself, Nan Tianba immediately slapped him again. Yuja's cheek quickly swelled up. Seeing that Nan Tianba was about to make another move, Yuja was scared silly. He quickly bowed down and kowtowed, begging for mercy. Great martial uncle, this disciple was wrong. This disciple was really wrong. I beg great martial uncle to forgive this disciple this time. Then tell me, where did you go wrong? Nan Tianba said expressionlessly. Yuja choked. He cursed in his heart that Nan Tianba had kicked an iron plate. However, if he were to say it out loud, it would be no different from courting death. If I remember correctly, you swore earlier that Lin Yi was Lin Heir. Nan Tianba's expression suddenly turned into one of uncontrollable anger. With Lin Yi's background, and how close he is to Shangguan Laner, even Ram Jie spoke up for him. Even Hong Zhong, who had such a close relationship with him, was unbelievably strong. If he wanted to kill you, it would be a piece of cake. He could just ask Hong Zhong to help him. Why would he need to pretend to be Lin Heir? Hong Zhong had also said that he had known Lin Yi for a long time. If Lin Yi wanted a staring stone, then Lin Yi wouldn't hesitate to give it to him. Why would I need to compete with you? With his relationship with Hong Zhong, it was just a matter of a word. Does he have nothing better to do? Is he messing with you? Do you think there's something wrong with his brain? Or do you think my brain was kicked by a donkey? These words. Southern Heavenly Gate also expressed his agreement. After thinking about it carefully, this was indeed the case. There was no need for Lin Yi to disguise himself as Lin Heir. This was also good. Although they were rebuffed, they could at least confirm that the staring stone wasn't on Lin Yi's body. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for them to steal something from Lin Yi with their own strength. Yuja had always been confident about this. He couldn't help but feel a bit embarrassed. He was still suspicious, but the move that Lin Yi used just now was exactly the same as when Lin Heir dealt with my master. It's exactly the same as when Lin Heir dealt with my master. How do you explain this? Southern Heavenly Gate thought about it and said, this isn't strange. Although I'm not a pill master, I can still see that the theory behind the pill fire bomb isn't too complicated. Any pill master with a bit of talent would only need to see it a few times to be able to imitate it. He was an expert that cultivated the small phaseless god technique. In terms of imitating martial skills, he had the most authority. If he was a pill master and could create a pill fire, he would have learned the pill fire bomb a long time ago. Yuja choked, but he didn't give up. He couldn't help but quibble. Since Lin Yi is called Lin One, then could Lin Heir be his brother? It's just like how eldest martial uncle is called Nan Tianba, and my master is called Nan Tianyong. This disciple always felt that Lin Yi's figure and temperament were very similar to Lin Heir's. Get the hell out of here. There's no use talking about this, I'll just throw you down. Nan Tianba said impatiently. If it wasn't for the fact that Yuja had a good eye for treasures, he would have already personally dealt with this troublemaker. Yuja was so scared that he shrunk his neck. He covered his burning cheeks with one hand and didn't dare to make another sound. This eldest martial uncle was famous for his decisiveness in killing. If he really made him unhappy, he might really lose his life. Now it seemed that Lin Yi wasn't Lin Heir. This point could be confirmed. As a result, the three of them could only turn their attention back to Kong Mingming. However, if they wanted to take any action, they would have to carefully consider young Master Su Lingchong's attitude. They didn't know that in the few days that they had stayed on the extreme North Island, the three great pavilions of the North Island had long been in a mess. The news of Su Lingchong's disappearance was now known by everyone. Everyone was talking about this matter during their leisure time. Su Lingchong was one of the top young masters in the Soaring Sky Pavilion. In particular, he held the important position of the eldest senior brother, who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. In the eyes of everyone, he was a person with a boundless future. A while ago, he was the host of eldest Miss Shangguan's birthday banquet, and showed his face in front of many important people. However, no one expected that such an influential person, who was the center of attention, would actually disappear for no reason. Actually, Su Lingchong didn't disappear for a long time. At the very most, it was only about 20 days. For cultivators who often had to go into closed-door training for several months, or even several years, it was simply a snap of the fingers. If it was an ordinary person, they would have long gotten used to it, and wouldn't even think about going missing. However, Su Lingchong was the eldest senior brother, who was in charge of the Soaring Sky Pavilion. Everything from top to bottom had to go through his hands. If he didn't show up for more than 20 days consecutively, this matter was very serious. Chapter 40-35. The matter was of great importance. Under the uproar of the whole city, the higher-ups of the three pavilions finally ordered the law enforcement hall to intervene in the investigation. All the elites were dispatched, and there was progress in just one day. The last time Su Lingchong appeared in front of people was when he hosted the birthday party, and the last person he met was actually Shanghai Laner. One was one of the best young masters in the Soaring Pavilion, and the other was the first miss of the Soaring Pavilion. The weight of these two people was not something that ordinary people could handle. In the end, only the hall master Ramjia could personally come forward to question them. Shanghai Tianhua had no intention of interfering in this matter. He allowed Shanghai Laner to take the little curly bear to go to the law enforcement hall. However, after Shanghai Laner arrived at the law enforcement hall, she only said one sentence, which shocked everyone present. That day at the birthday party, Su Lingchong wanted to rape me under the influence of alcohol. Fortunately, my little white also drank wine, and he saved me after he went into a drunken frenzy. Such an explosive inside story made several higher-ups of the law enforcement hall stunned. They opened their mouths wide and couldn't react for a long time. Only Ram Jie didn't have any strange reaction. He said directly, "In that case, Su Lingchong should have failed to rape you, and then fled to avoid punishment." It seems so. It took a long time for the people of the law enforcement hall to recover from the shock, and they all echoed with strange expressions. Issue a wanted notice to arrest Su Lingchong. Ram Jie immediately made a decision with no expression on his face. As soon as the wanted notice was issued, not only the three pavilions, but even the whole North Island was in an uproar. There were all kinds of speculations about Su Lingchong's disappearance, but no one thought in this direction. The top young master of the Soaring Pavilion raped the first miss of the Soaring Pavilion. This was simply breaking news that could not be heard for hundreds of years. When Su Yuanjing heard the news, his lungs were about to explode. This was also the reason why he didn't know that his grandson's lower part had been eroded by the little curly bear. Otherwise, he would probably have fainted on the spot. Su Lingchong, his grandson, was a core figure whom he was cultivating as the successor of the Su family. Now that he had done this, even if he could come back safe and sound in the future, his reputation would be ruined. Hall Lord Gong Yang, Shangguan Laner's words are illogical. Putting aside the fact that my family's Chong-er would never do such a foolish thing, even if he had drunk too much and lost his mind for a moment, how could a mere little curly bear stop him? Aren't you being too arbitrary by directly issuing an arrest warrant without saying anything? Su Yuanjing said with a livid old face. Ram Jie raised his eyes and looked at him. Facing this powerful elder of the Elders Guild, Ram Jie felt that it was impossible. He did not have the slightest reverence on his face as he said indifferently, "Since when did it become Elder Su's turn to question how my law enforcement hall does things?" Su Yuanjing choked on his words for a long time. He knew that Ram Jie never bought anyone's words. This was the authority given to him by the island master of the North Island. But he never thought that the other party would not give him face. Why would he run if he had nothing to do? When Su Lingchong is arrested and brought to justice, this matter will naturally come to light. Elder Su, you'd better think about how to explain it to Pavilion Master Shangguan. Ram Jia curled his lips in disdain, then immediately swung his hand and left, leaving Su Yuanjing alone in a daze. Let's not talk about the uproar outside. During this period of time, Su Lingchong had been in a secret room somewhere, wholeheartedly practicing the chrysanthemum treasure book that the mysterious man had left for him. Just as Su Lingchong was concentrating on his practice, an official document was suddenly thrown in front of him. With just a glance, Su Lingchong turned pale with fright. This was the arrest warrant issued by the Law Enforcement Hall. How could this be? Su Lingchong suddenly felt dizzy. Being cut into a eunuch by the little curly bear with a pair of scissors was already a big blow to him. Now that this happened, not only could he not be a man, he could not even be the young master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Power and strength, these were the last driving forces that supported him to live. If he could not even achieve this little ambition, then what was the point of living? Looking at Su Lingchong's despairing expression, at this time, the mysterious man suddenly said, "Strength is the most important. Everything else is just fleeting clouds. If you have the strength that I have, then you can say that you are guilty. Then you are guilty. If you say that you are innocent, then you are innocent. No one in the North Island would dare to point fingers at you." Su Lingchong suddenly raised his head and looked at the mysterious man who was still covered in a black robe. He knew that the purpose of the other party deliberately bringing the arrest warrant this time was to threaten him, to make him give up the thought of escaping, and in the future, he could only follow him wholeheartedly. Once the arrest warrant was out, it could be said that he had nothing now. Even if the mysterious man was willing to let him out, he did not have the guts to return to the three great pavilions. Even the Su family could not tolerate him. After all, what was said in the warrant was all true. Finally, Su Lingchong took a deep breath and promised, "Senior, don't worry. I will definitely practice the chrysanthemum treasure book and work hard to improve my strength." This reaction was not at all out of the mysterious man's expectation. He nodded and said, "Not bad, you have ambition. When you have enough strength, I can find a way to cancel this arrest warrant for you, so that you can openly return to the three great pavilions in the North Island." Hearing this guarantee, Su Lingchong's eyes suddenly lit up, and he nodded repeatedly to thank him. At the same time, he could not help but secretly speculate about the identity of this mysterious man. Listening to the tone of the other party's words, it did not seem that he was perfunctory. Looking at the whole North Island, there were actually very few people who had the influence to cancel the arrest warrant. Could it be that this person was a senior of the three great pavilions? Or was it that North Island owner? While Su Lingchong was speculating in private, he saw that in the dark of this secret room, a figure suddenly appeared again. Like the mysterious man, he was covered in a large black robe. Normally speaking, every cultivator can change their mental cultivation method mnemonics once in the Tao of Heaven. However, you're already in the foundation establishment stage, so it's a bit late. In order to help you get used to it as quickly as possible, I invited a fierce person to give you some pointers. He's an expert that even my superiors think highly of, so you'd better show some respect." After saying this, the mysterious man turned to the person beside him and said, "Junior Brother Pao, I thank you in advance for letting you take time out of your busy schedule to come here to help guide me." The man in the black robe, who was called Junior Brother Pao, snorted and said, "Well, it's nothing. It's all for the organization." Chapter 4036. Su Lingchong was evasive. Thinking back to the time when Kong Mingming flattered him, he could only bite the bullet and shout, "Gunslinger." As the young master of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, it was always others who flattered him. When had he ever taken the initiative to flatter others? But he had to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. In this situation, if he didn't know what was good for him, he would only be asking for trouble. Unexpectedly, just as Su Lingchong shouted "Gunslinger," he was immediately kicked into a corner by the mysterious man. He almost suffered internal injuries. Gunslinger is for you to call? You mean, you and I are of the same generation? The mysterious man's tone was unfriendly. Su Lingchong was shocked. Ignoring the pain in his body, he hurriedly said, Master Pao. Your aptitude is not bad. You also have hatred in your heart. It is suitable for you to practice my unique chrysanthemum treasured book. Junior Pao nodded and said, Actually, you don't have to worry too much. The ultimate meaning of the chrysanthemum treasured book is to take over someone else's body and be reborn. Although you are incomplete now, and are an incomplete man, as long as you practice with me in the future, as long as your strength reaches that level, you can take over someone else's body and be reborn. Taking over someone else's body and being reborn was an extremely rare thing, even in the world of cultivation where experts gathered. Even with Su Lingchong's experience, he had only heard of rumors and had never actually come into contact with it. He didn't expect that the chrysanthemum treasured book that the mysterious man wanted him to practice actually had such a legendary technique. That's great. Why yeah. I want to take over Lin Yi's body. Su Lingchong immediately swept away the haze that had been hanging over him recently. No man would really want to be a eunuch. As long as there was a glimmer of hope, they would grasp it tightly as their last hope. It's good that there is hatred. A cold smile flashed across Junior Pao's face. He then handed Su Lingchong a piece of paper and said, This is my summary of my experiences. It will be very beneficial for your cultivation of the chrysanthemum treasured book. I'll give it to you as a reference. Also, this medicinal pill is to be swallowed in conjunction with the cultivation of the chrysanthemum treasure book. I've already used less than half of this starring stone, so you can use it as well. Let this mysterious senior brother teach you how to use it. Thank you, Master Pao. Thank you so much. Su Lingchong did not suspect anything. He received it and nodded his head to express his thanks. Right now, his mind was only filled with one thing, and that was to seize another body and be reborn. Looking at Su Lingchong's performance, Junior Brother Pao and the mysterious man looked at each other and laughed silently. In West Island, as soon as Ning Xuefei came back from the auction in the far North Island, she couldn't wait to find her best friend. If Lin Yi was here, he would be surprised to see her best friend. It was Han Jingjing. Ever since she came to Heaven Stage Island, Han Jingjing still maintained her interest in the secular world and always liked to study some strange mechanisms. Ning Xuefei, the daughter of the Ning family, also had the same hobby. After a chance encounter, the two of them hit it off immediately. Soon, they became super best friends. It was a pity that the technology on Heaven Stage Island was limited. Without those electronic components, Han Jingjing could no longer make automatic medicine cauldrons. Therefore, there was no way to refine elixirs anymore. The two of them could only study some other delicate mechanisms together. Although Ning Xuefei did not like to practice, just like the King of Rags, she was a proper armament master. When she chatted with Han Jingjing, she accidentally found that they had a common master. That was Sun Sikong. More or less, they had both received guidance from Sun Sikong. With this unexpected relationship, the relationship between the two became closer. They talked almost everything. No matter what happened, they wanted to share it with each other as soon as possible. Jingjing, look, these elixirs are the biggest harvest I got from this trip to the far North Island. What do you think of the quality of these elixirs? Ning Xuefei said with an expression of presenting treasures. The quality of these elixirs should be very rare, even among the best ones. It's the first time I've seen such good elixirs since I came to Heaven Stage Island. They're just like the ones refined by Brother Lin Yi in the secular world. Han Jingjing suddenly said in amazement. My eyes are very good, right? Do you want to know where these elixirs came from? Ning Xuefei pretended to be mysterious. How? Han Jingjing asked cooperatively. Ning Xuefei giggled and didn't keep Han Jingjing guessing anymore. She told Han Jingjing everything that had happened during the auction, especially about her and Lin Yi. Ning Xuefei told Han Jingjing everything that had happened during the auction, especially about her and Lin Yi. After listening, Han Jingjing's big eyes flashed and she asked, Feifei, that little fellow, what's his name? Ning Xuefei was stunned and scratched her head. I don't know, I forgot to ask. What does he look like? Han Jingjing asked again. Jingjing, why are you asking so carefully? Ning Xuefei looked up and down at Han Jingjing suspiciously. Suddenly, she hugged Han Jingjing and laughed. Ah, I know. Jingjing. Have you fallen in love with that young fellow after what I said to you? She thought. If there's a chance, I'll help you matchmake him? Han Jingjing suddenly blushed and wrinkled her nose. Forget it. You know that I already have someone I like. She talked to Ning Xuefei about everything in the common world, especially things related to Lin Yi. Ning Xuefei knew all about it. Haha, alright, let's not talk about this for now. Let's continue to study the automatic casting mechanism today. I can't wait for the past few days. Ning Xuefei played around for a while, then dragged Han Jingjing to a secret room. This was a secret base that was specially set up for their research. Well, about this automatic casting mechanism, I've thought of a new idea these days. We can try it. Han Jingjing immediately put the matter of the little fellow behind her and discussed it excitedly. Of course, Lin Yi didn't notice it at all. After returning to the North Island, he also heard about Su Lingchong. Although it was a little unexpected, it was still reasonable. The attempted rape was a fact. Even if Shanghai Laner didn't take the initiative to report it, Su Lingchong certainly wouldn't have the guts to show up rashly. Especially from the original situation. His current situation was still unknown. As for his disappearance, it was normal. But what Lin Yi didn't expect was that with Su Lingchong's background, he would be beaten when he was down. Under the command of Ram Jia, the Law Enforcement Hall was really confident. That's good. The Law Enforcement Hall saved me a lot of trouble by doing this. Lin Yi looked at the wanted poster and smiled knowingly. Chapter 4037. The hatred formed at the birthday party last time could be said to be irreconcilable. Su Lingchong could jump out from the dark at any time to launch a sneak attack. With his strength in the peak of Foundation establishment, it was no doubt difficult to deal with. But now, not only the 3 pavilions, but also other places in the North Island, were also covered with wanted posters from the Law Enforcement Hall. Su Lingchong didn't even dare to show up, let alone launch a sneak attack on Lin Yi. At least in a short period of time, Lin Yi didn't need to worry about his threat. However, people without foresight would have immediate worries. Soon Lin Yi received bad news. Hong Zhong was about to leave the North Island. As the incoming vice president of the headquarters of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Hong Zhong's departure was a foregone conclusion from the moment he was appointed. What really gave Lin Yi a headache was what Hong Zhong told him before he left. Young hero Lin, according to your request, I have asked the headquarters not to deal with your identity as the honorary vice president publicly. Only the president and the executive vice president know about it. Don't worry, Hong Zhong said. Well, thank you, Mr. Hong. Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. This was a matter of course. As a newcomer in Blue Cloud Pavilion, if he suddenly made such an arrogant identity as the honorary vice president of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would simply attract hatred. There would inevitably be people who would be envious and hate him. This was also inconsistent with Lin Yi's purpose of improving his strength in a low-key manner. However, what Hong Zhong said next made his face change slightly. I'm leaving today to go to Middle Island to take the position of the vice president. If everything goes well, the new manager of the North Island branch will be in place in 2 days. Young hero Lin, you have to be careful of this person. What do you mean? Lin Yi's eyes narrowed. This person's name is Si Haixiao. He was originally the supervisor of Hong Ying Group in the headquarters of Middle Island, responsible for supervising the branch managers. This time, taking advantage of the vacancy in the North Island branch, he spent a lot of effort to fight for this position. Hong Zhong paused and then said, There is one thing you still don't know, young hero Lin. Previously, Southern Skygate came to threaten me to give out the details of your other identity. At that time, they used Si Haixiao's personal letter as a threat. So this Si Haishao has a close relationship with Nan Tianba and the others? Lin Yi couldn't help but feel a headache after hearing this. With his relationship with Hong Zhong, it would be easy for him to ask the Hong Chamber of Commerce for help in the future, such as purchasing the heart-devouring exquisite grass. Even if it was someone else, with Hong Zhong's help, it wouldn't be a big problem for them either. However, if this successor had a close relationship with Nan Tianba and his group, it would be extremely difficult to ask the Hong Chamber of Commerce for help. Even if Hong Zhong was his immediate superior, the branch shopkeeper was a feudal lord and had great autonomy. If he insisted on not cooperating with such a small matter that had nothing to do with his principles, even Hong Zhong would not be able to do anything to him. Not bad, and this guy is from Hong Ying's team. His intelligence surveillance ability is far above that of a normal person. Once you are targeted by him, it will be very difficult for you to hide any secrets. So young hero Lin, you must be careful. Hong Zhong reminded again. Lin Yi nodded and said, I understand. Thank you for your concern, Elder Hong. Elder Hong must have faced many challenges on this trip to Middle Island. I wish you all the best. You will be promoted step by step. Hong Zhong smiled and said, Then I will borrow young hero Lin's auspicious words. This old man will go to Middle Island to fight a preliminary battle. If nothing goes wrong, we will meet again on Middle Island. See you on Middle Island. Lin Yi smiled slightly. Hong Zhong originally thought that the new branch shopkeeper, Si Haishao, would take at least a few days to arrive. However, he did not know that when he said goodbye to Lin Yi, Si Haishao had already arrived on North Island. However, he did not appear in public, and had been investigating in secret. Before the troops and horses moved, the intelligence was already in advance. As the former Hong Ying Group's Four Directions supervisor, even if Si Haishao became the shopkeeper of the North Island branch, he would not get rid of this habit that he had developed over the years. As for Nan Tianba and the others, since they were the local tyrants of North Island and had various connections with him, they were naturally the first choice for Si Haishao to understand the situation. Supervisor Si, oh no, you should be shopkeeper Si now. I did not expect you to be transferred to North Island. This news really made us overjoyed. We have finally found a backer. In the future, please take care of us, shopkeeper Si. Southern Skygate said with a flattering smile. Nan Tianba was arrogant and disdained flattery, while Yu's level was not high enough. Therefore, among the few of them, Southern Skygate had the closest relationship with Si Haishao. Well said, well said. We are all on the same side. As long as you help me in the future, I won't mistreat you guys, ha ha ha. However, this is my first time here, so my understanding of North Island is mostly literal information. As for the specific situation, I still need you guys to tell me in detail. Si Haishao said with an amiable expression. Okay. Southern Skygate was happy to show off, so he immediately nodded. Chapter 4038. From the Hong Ying Group to the manager of the North Island branch, Si Haishao's position had changed a lot. Not only did he have his own connections, but more importantly, Nan Tianba and the others' uncles had spent a lot of money to help him get in touch with an amazing business performance. This made him, a supervisor who was not in charge of business, stand out in the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and had the capital to compete for a higher position. Seeing that Si Haishao had already put it this way, Nan Tianba and the others could not force him, and could only nod silently. During this period of time, I'd better think of a way to investigate the whereabouts of Lin Air for you. Si Haishao laughed. Although he was not familiar with the people and the place, he had a deep relationship with the Hong Ying Group's intelligence system. If he wanted to use the Hong Ying Group's intelligence force in the North Island, it was just a matter of a word. Thank you, Manager Si. Nan Tianba and the others were immediately overjoyed. They only wanted revenge against Lin Yi, but if they found Lin Air, not only could they avenge their third brother, Nan Tianyong, but they could also get a huge benefit like the Star Ink Stone. This matter was much more important. At the same time, Si Haishao, Nan Tianba, and the others were planning on this side. After sending Hong Zhong away, Lin Yi went to find the garbage king and gave him all the materials he needed, shocking the guy to the point where his jaw dropped. Although he listed 7 kinds of casting materials for Lin Yi and pointed out the way of auction, the king of junk really did not expect that Lin Yi could buy them so smoothly. If it was him, he probably would not have the hope of collecting so many top-grade materials in his life. The casting materials had been collected, but the king of junk did not immediately start casting. As a casting master, he needed to spend time to familiarize himself with these materials. Otherwise, if he acted rashly, the success rate would be worrying. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't have much to do during this time. The professional, the king of junk, was in charge of the preparations. As for the daily life in the welcome pavilion, because of Su Lingchong's sudden disappearance, Kong Mingming's group had obviously ceased all activities. Consequently, Lin Yi's life became peaceful. Morong Zhen gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Without Kong Mingming and the others to stand up for her, it would be impossible for her to defeat Lin Yi on her own. However, how could a vengeful creature like her give up so easily? Since there was no opportunity to push the boat along with the current, then he would take the initiative to create an opportunity and stir up more waves. While the king of junk was making his final preparations, Lin Yi was cultivating as usual. Other than familiarizing himself with the new killer moves, he also needed time to stabilize his new realm. Previously, he had heard people say that every peak of the Foundation Establishment realm was an insurmountable threshold. The last time he broke through to the peak of the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm was a clear example. This time, he was at the peak of the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. If he did not diligently cultivate, then no matter how many pills he had, it would be useless. However, just a few days ago, there was a rumor about Lin Yi. It was widely spread in the 3 pavilions. "Boss, is it true that you like Miss Shengguan?" When they got together, Xiao Hong asked with a mischievous look. "Boss, is it true?" Even senior brother Bitter, Xiao Ran, and Li Zhengming had the word gossip written clearly on their faces. "What do you mean?" Lin Yi was confused. "Junior brother Lin, you don't have to pretend in front of us. It's not shameful to say it out loud. Just admit it." Even an honest man like senior brother Bitter began to wink at him. Lin Yi was even more confused. He looked at them with strange expressions and asked curiously, "What's going on? What do you want me to admit?" The few of them looked at each other. In the end, it was still Xiao Ran who slowly explained. "Recently, there has been a very hot rumor circulating in the streets. Boss, you like Miss Shengguan. But unfortunately, you didn't confess to her during the birthday party. Su Lingchong realized the danger because he saw you alone with Miss Shengguan. That was why he attempted to rape you." This rumor could be said to have a nose and eyes, and it did somewhat corroborate the situation that day. In addition, the protagonists were influential figures like Shengguan Laner and Su Lingchong, so it was completely in line with everyone's needs for gossip. It was reasonable that it spread more and more intensely in a place like the 3 pavilions. Looking at the few people with a strong thirst for knowledge, Lin Yi shrugged helplessly. "It's said that rumors stop with the wise. You guys don't really believe that there's such a thing, right? There's obviously a problem with the logic here. If I fail to confess to Shengguan Laner, then what's Su Lingchong worried about? Just because he saw me getting closer to Shengguan Laner, he went crazy and tried to rape her. In the end, he ended up being wanted on the wanted list. Is Su Lingchong so brainless?" "That's true." Senior brother Bitter and the others nodded one after another. In fact, they didn't really believe this rumor, but it was an obvious fact that Shengguan Laner looked at Lin Yi in a different light. In the end, they just wanted to know if Lin Yi was interested in this Miss Shengguan. However, this rumor suddenly came out. Is it purely because everyone is gossiping, or is someone playing tricks in the dark? Lin Yi couldn't help but have more doubts between his brows. Regardless of what more far-reaching impact it would have in the future, this rumor had already put Lin Yi on fire. Next, Lin Yi's every move would be paid attention to. It was really not a small trouble. When Lin Yi said this, senior brother Bitter and the others' eyelids twitched at the same time. Yes, if this rumor is taken seriously, then junior brother Lin, you're in danger. This is equivalent to becoming the culprit of Su Lingchong's current situation. Su Yuanjing has always regarded him as the future of the Su family. It's hard to guarantee that he won't retaliate. That's a possibility. However, Su Yuanjing is an elder, and he has always presented himself as a righteous and honorable person. The possibility of him making a move against me shouldn't be high. After all, that would give others a chance to use him against me. Lin Yi shook his head. Compared to his own situation, he was more worried about Shangguan Lan'er. Although she had the dazzling halo of Shangguan Tianhua's only granddaughter, Shanghai Lan'er did not have much strength. She was a little naive and simple, and she often sneaked out with the little curly bear. If someone really wanted to target her, there was a chance that they would succeed. It was unknown whether they had a tacit understanding, or Cao Cao just arrived on time. While they were discussing, they saw a small figure in the distance running towards Lin Yi. It was the little curly bear. Chapter 4039. Lin Yi didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he didn't say much. Seeing that the little curly bear dared to come to the welcome pavilion in broad daylight, he sighed in his heart. Now that there was no big trouble like Su Lingchong, his little senior sister was obviously not vigilant anymore. If it was in the past, she wouldn't have let the little curly bear come at this time. The purpose of the little curly bear coming was naturally to send a letter for Shanghai Lan'er. There were only 7 words in the letter. See you in the woods in 3 days. There were too many of them to count, and anyone else would have had no idea what they were talking about. Only Lin Yi himself knew which part of the forest he was referring to. 3 days passed by in a flash. Lin Yi arrived on time, and the location was the woods where he and Shanghai Lan'er had their first date. Sure enough, as soon as Lin Yi passed through the forest path, he saw Shanghai Lan'er waving at him from the pavilion. Little junior brother, I heard that you went to the extreme North Island a few days ago. How was it? Was it fun there? Shanghai Lan'er asked excitedly as soon as they met. It was all right, but this time I went to participate in the auction, so I didn't play much. Lin Yi smiled and nodded, but he was a little surprised in his heart. He had never told anyone about him going to the extreme North Island with Hong Zhong. How come even the big Miss Shanghai Lan'er had heard about it now? Little did he know, on the first day that Nan Tianba and the others returned from the extreme North Island, they urged the Welcome Pavilion's pavilion master, Hu Yinfeng, to report this matter to the higher-ups of the 3 pavilions. They accused Lin Yi, as a newcomer, of not following the rules and running around. Even if they couldn't let Lin Yi receive any substantial punishment, they still wanted to use this matter to disgust him. However, everyone's focus was on the wanted Su Lingchong, so no one paid attention to such a small matter. Of course, if Lin Yi made any more mistakes in the future, this matter would inevitably be brought up by people with ulterior motives. At that time, it would be one disaster after another. That's a pity. I heard from Feifei that the extreme North Island is very fun. It's just that my grandpa never goes there, and he never lets me go alone. Shangguan Lan'er's beautiful eyes turned, and she suddenly said, How about we sneak out to play next time? And don't let my grandpa know. Quack. Lin Yi was still wondering who the Feifei that Shangguan Lan'er mentioned was. When he suddenly heard such a sentence, he couldn't help but be shocked. He hadn't even done anything with this little senior sister, but there were already rumors spreading everywhere. If he really brought her to the northernmost island, wouldn't he be caught and criticized? What? Are you unwilling? Shangguan Lan'er frowned. Lin Yi reacted quickly. Oh, I see. Let's wait for a chance. The extreme North Island is heavily guarded. You can't just go in whenever you want. All right then. Shangguan Lan'er pouted, and suddenly said, Little junior brother, this time you rarely go to the northernmost island. Did you bring a gift for me, your senior sister? Lin Yi was thinking about this matter. He immediately nodded and said, I brought it. Saying that, he took out 2 strings of crystal blue necklaces from his arms, and handed one of them to Shangguan Lan'er. Shangguan Lan'er suddenly became happy. She held the necklace and cheered. Little junior brother, You have a conscience. Senior sister really didn't dote on you in vain. This necklace is so beautiful. I like it very much. Since little senior sister likes it, then it couldn't be better. Lenny smiled with relief, and then introduced, these two necklaces, in fact. I found a blacksmith to guide me from the side these 2 days. I personally made it. Really? Shangguan Laner's eyes lit up when she heard this. The necklace was bought by someone else, and the necklace that Lenny personally made. In her eyes, this necklace was completely different. This necklace was the result of Lin Yi's painstaking efforts. Of course it's true. I bought a pair of blue photon crystals at the Extreme North Islands auction, so I had a sudden impulse to make a pair of mother and child necklaces. After injecting vital qi, the two necklaces can sense each other. Little senior sister, after you wear this necklace, if you encounter danger and get nervous, the vital qi I inject will fluctuate, so no matter where you are, I can sense your position, Lenny explained. The idea of making a mother and child necklace was not purely a whim, but after hearing the recent rumors, Lenny thought of a way to protect Shangguan Laner in disguise. In this way, if she encountered any danger, Lenny would be able to sense it. It's so magical, then I can't let little junior brother down. Shangguan Laner immediately jumped for joy and wore the blue photon crystals necklace in front of Lin Yi. How is it, little junior brother? Does it look good on me? Shangguan Laner raised her neck and turned around. Her beauty was like that of a fairy descending to the mortal world. Even with Lin Yi's mental fortitude, he could not help but stare at her. It looks great, Lin Yi praised sincerely. Hee, little junior brother's mouth is so sweet, I like it. Shangguan Laner teased innocently. On the contrary, Lin Yi, an old man, who had been in love for a long time, actually blushed in embarrassment. This time, Shangguan Laner asked Lin Yi out for no special reason. It was purely for fun. Moreover, this little senior sister did not have any airs of a rich lady. It was relaxing and happy to be with her. There was a balance between work and rest. It was rare for Lin Yi to accompany her to relax for a day. The next day Lin Yi calculated that it was about time. He immediately went to the secret cave base of the King of Rags and began to start the final countdown of casting. After these days of contact, Lin Yi had a good understanding of the King of Rags. He also believed that this casting master, who had never had any outstanding achievements, could cast a powerful magic weapon to his liking with these rare materials that he had painstakingly collected. However, as a casting master himself, Lin Yi naturally could not just be a carefree hands-off boss. Even if he could not control the whole casting process with his ability, it was not a big problem for him to help the King of Rags. Moreover, whether he succeeded or failed, he would definitely benefit a lot. The super rare materials, including the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient pure land, were included in the casting process. This time, it was almost an unprecedented feat in the entire cultivation world. Not to mention Lin Yi and the King of Rags, even the most powerful top casting master would be thrilled. The King of Rags had said to Lin Yi more than once that this casting would be recorded in history and make him famous all over the world. Chapter 40. The Garbage King didn't mention this change, but Lin Yi could tell from his actions that the guy was even more careful than Lin Yi, the person in question. He didn't want the slightest accident to happen. From the beginning to the end, the King of Wornout looked at the whole casting plan again, and changed it tirelessly. Even the word nitpicking was not enough to describe the King of Wornout's strictness. After finishing the final preparations with the King of Wornout, Lin Yi asked, "Everything is ready. Is it time to start casting?" However, after the King of Junk cleaned his clothes again, he shook his head and said, "It's not working yet." "Ah, why not?" Lin Yi paused. As an assassin, his patience wasn't bad, but after going through so many rounds of preparation, even his patience was running out. The King of Wornout deserved to be a research genius. Once he devoted himself to it, his persistence could not be tolerated by ordinary people. "Brother Lin, can you find some weapons or props that have been formed outside? It doesn't matter if they are of high or low grade. I have an idea that might be useful in casting, the king of Wornout said while rubbing his forehead. After thinking for a while, Linny took out a ring and handed it to him, saying, "Will this ring of genuine chi work?" The king of Wornout's eyes lit up. He immediately nodded and said, "Yes, as long as it is a formed wizard weapon. It's just an auxiliary material. Anyway, it's better to have more of this kind of weapon just in case." "If that's the case, I still have a few old weapons. Since I can't use them now, I can take them to forge for you." What Linny referred to were the heaven-level weapons he collected in the secular world. It was a good time to make use of them. After informing the king of Wornout, Linny was about to find a secluded corner. He planned to take out those heaven-level wizard weapons from the space of the jade pendant. However, at this moment, an inexplicable throbbing came from his heart. The source was the genuine chi fluctuation of the mother of blue light necklace on his chest. Linny had never thought that the mother and child necklace he had given to Shanghai Laner would come in handy in just a few days. Sensing Shangguan Laner's location through the mother-child necklace, Linny suddenly found that Shanghai Laner was very far away at the moment, although she was still within the range of North Island. But from the looks of it, at least they had completely left the territory of the three great pavilions. The connection between the mother and child necklaces will only give a clear warning when Shanghai Laner feels danger and is nervous. Therefore, the possibility of Shanghai Tianhua taking her out can be ruled out. This little senior sister might really be in big trouble if she is so far away from the three pavilions. Just as Linny sensed the crisis, far away in the wilderness on the other side of North Island. In a shabby martial arts field, Shanghai Laner was tied up. As for the little curly bear, who was always by her side, he was knocked unconscious. He was put in a sack and thrown in a corner, with a strong smell of alcohol on his body. "Hey, what do you want to do by bringing me to this shabby place?" Shanghai Laner's behavior at this time was simply shocking. Not only was he not afraid like before, he even shouted angrily at the two black-clothed masked men in front of him. At the same time, she also secretly glanced at the little curly bear in the corner, with hidden hope in her eyes. The cause of the accident this time was this little fellow. If the little fellow hadn't come out to steal wine to drink, Shanghai Laner would not have rushed out. Otherwise, if she had stayed in the heavily guarded territory of Rising Sky Pavilion, the two masked men in black in front of her would not have had a chance to kidnap her. However, thinking of the magical performance of the little fellow after drinking the spiritual wine last time, Shanghai Laner still had some confidence in the bottom of her heart. Even Su Lingchong's family jewels could be erased. It should be no problem to deal with these two masked men in black, who did not look very strong, right? One of the masked men in black glanced at her and said in a hoarse voice that was obviously deliberately changed, "Do you still need to ask? Of course it's to kidnap you. Is it strange to kidnap a rich lady like you?" "TSK, kidnap this lady. Don't tell me you really dare to ask my grandfather for ransom?" Shanghai Laner curled her lips in disdain. Even if her own strength was not good, she could see that the strength of these two people was not to the extent of being abnormal. It was impossible for them to challenge her grandfather, Shanghai Tianhua. "Who told you that kidnappings must be for ransom?" A rich lady like you is really ignorant." The masked man in black replied mockingly. Shanghai Laner was immediately stunned. At this time, the other masked man in black also opened his mouth. It was a rather familiar female voice. "Without this big obstacle, Su Lingchong, boss will be able to smoothly ascend the position this time and become the son-in-law of Shanghai Tianhua. It's just a matter of time." The male masked man glared at her and carefully looked at Shanghai Laner. He turned his head and reprimanded, "Don't talk nonsense." The female masked man did not care. "What's there to be afraid of? When the rice is cooked, do you think we'll be afraid that this little girl won't admit it? We're only doing this because we have no other choice. Otherwise, with boss's relationship with her, although it's not bad, there's still a long way to go to get the approval of Shanghai Tianhua. After all, his identity is not good. He's just a newcomer in the welcoming pavilion. He's not good enough." As the two masked men talked, they paid attention to Shanghai Laner's expression. However, They found that this little girl did not have the doubt and understanding that they had imagined. Instead, she looked at the two of them as if they were crazy. These two people must be sick in the head. I don't know what they're talking about. Shanghai Laner did not pay attention to the two people's words at all. She only secretly glanced at the little curly bear and found that the little guy was snoring like thunder. She was speechless and rolled her eyes. How could he sleep at such a crucial time? This little guy was really unreliable. Shanghai Laner was speechless. The two masked men in black were even more speechless than her. They had deliberately racked their brains to come up with these words, just now, and deliberately said it to Shanghai Laner face to face. In the end, this little girl did not take it seriously at all. What could they do? They really did not know whether this little girl, Shanghai Laner, was too careless, or her brain was really not good. The direction of the words was so obvious. How could she not have any reaction after hearing it? The two masked men looked at each other speechlessly, but there was nothing they could do. They could not repeat these words to her face, right? That would really make them crazy. Chapter 40-41. After the man walked into the broken martial arts practice field, he carefully looked at the two people outside. After making sure that no one was looking at him, he quickly turned around and walked to Shanghai Laner, whispering, "Miss Shangguan, I actually pretend to be with boss. In fact, I'm in Chao camp but my heart is in Han camp. I can help you inform him. Although I dare not let you go, you can write a letter to your grandfather. I will send it for you and ask him to save you." Write a letter? How should I write it? Shangguan Lan turned to look at him. It's very simple. You just need to tell your grandfather that you were kidnapped by Boss Lin Yi. The masked man in black guided her. Hearing this, Shanghai Laner's eyes curved into a beautiful crescent. Seeing that the masked man in black was staring at her eagerly, she suddenly smiled helplessly and said, "But I don't study much and I can't read." Quack! The masked man in black almost choked to death. "You are the Miss Shangguan, the pearl of Tianhua's palm. How could you say that you can't read?" The masked man in black was stunned for a long time. He didn't know whether it was true or not. After all, some cultivators had been cultivating since childhood. It was not impossible for them to be illiterate. So he said, "How about this? You tell me to write it, and then you sign it." Shanghai Laner continued to shake her head. "No, I've never signed it. In the 3 pavilions of the North Island, who dares to ask me to sign it? You." Even under the black mask, the masked man's twitching expression could be seen. "Do you still want your grandfather to know that you were kidnapped by Lin Yi, and ask him to come here to save you?" "No, it's fun here. Let's talk about it in a few days. I don't want my grandfather to worry about me, so that he won't ask me to cultivate all day long." Shanghai Laner looked like she was going to take things as they came. Puff! The masked man in black almost choked to death by his own saliva. This time, he was completely at his wit's end. How could he deal with this girl? At this moment, outside the broken martial arts arena, the two masked men from before had already taken off their masks. If there were people in the welcoming pavilion, they would definitely be shocked. These two people were actually Kong Ming and Morongzhen. As long as we hand that chick's handwritten letter to Shangguan Tianhua, Lin Yi will be in deep trouble. "Deacon Kong, you're really smart." Morongzhen laughed excitedly. "You flatter me. How could you come up with such a daring idea as kidnapping Shangguan Lan? Lady Morong's courage is truly admirable." Kong Ming replied proudly. At the same time, he turned his head to look at the broken arena. "I just didn't expect that girl to be so stupid. She couldn't even hear such an obvious hint. Now we can only pin our hopes on Chao Wu. Don't worry, Deacon Kong." Although Chao Wu is a fence-sitter with no loyalty, he's not one to be trifled with. Even if it's just to save his own life, he wouldn't dare to ruin our plan, Morongzhen said confidently. As the two of them were talking, Chao Wu had already come out from the other side. His head was hanging low, and he looked dejected and speechless. "Chao Wu, how did it go? Is it done?" Kong Ming asked. "Sigh. Don't mention it." Chao Wu looked extremely depressed. After listening to Chao Wu's report, both Kong Ming and Morongzhen were dumbfounded. How did Shangguan Tianhua raise his only granddaughter? She's already been kidnapped. How can she still be so open-minded? Is she stupid? Kong Mingming thought about it and made a decision immediately. A long delay may cause trouble. We can't wait any longer. Lady Morong, you should go back and report now. Anyway, Linny has been appearing and disappearing mysteriously recently. We don't know where he is hiding. No matter what you say, you are right. All right. Morong Jun hesitated for a while, but she nodded and agreed in the end. It was actually quite a risky thing to report Linny. However, since Kong Mingming had already said so, she couldn't just reject him. If the two of them had an internal conflict, it would be over. After all, Shanghai Laner's identity was not to be underestimated. Every moment they waited would increase the danger. Morong Jun immediately set off for the 3 major pavilions and went straight to the law enforcement hall to report. She claimed that she accidentally saw Lin Yi and his men kidnapping Shanghai Laner. As soon as she said that, the entire law enforcement hall was shocked. Last time, she was raped by Su Lingchong. How long had it been this time? She was kidnapped again. Could it be that this year was the year of Shanghai Laner's birth? Not only was the report shocking, but the law enforcement hall's reaction, or more accurately, the hall master Ram Jie's reaction was even more shocking. Within an hour after receiving Morong Jun's report, the law enforcement hall directly issued an arrest warrant to arrest Lin Yi without even notifying his relative, Shanghai Tianhua. Such a decisive and swift reaction was like heaven and earth, compared to the time when Nan Tianyong had been killed. Even Morong Jun, the person who had exposed the truth, felt that it was unbelievable when he saw all of this. She thought that the law enforcement hall would at least interrogate her carefully. She had even made a mental draft in advance. However, she didn't expect that things would go so smoothly. It was so smooth that she was a little depressed. She had prepared for nothing. She hadn't even shown her ability, but she was not allowed to speak. However, thinking of what Su Lingchong had done before, it should be understandable. When it came to Shanghai Laner, the speed was indeed fast. As soon as the arrest warrant was issued, the 3 pavilions were in an uproar again. What was more surprising was that only 2 hours after the arrest warrant was issued, Lin Yi, who was still ignorant of all this, was directly caught on the spot. Seeing that his arrest warrant was jointly suppressed by a group of experts of the law enforcement hall, Lin Yi finally realized that all this was a conspiracy aimed at him. These days, he was busy studying how to cast weapons with the King of Rags, so his thinking was somewhat out of line with the outside world. If it had been in the past, with Lin Yi's usual cautious style, he should have been vigilant when he found that Shanghai Laner was in danger. He would never swagger back to the welcome pavilion, and even go up to see his arrest warrant. However, it was too late now. Falling into the hands of the law enforcement hall, Lin Yi couldn't escape by force with his own strength. Everything else depended on Ram Jie's mood. Judging from his contact with Ram Jie at the birthday party last time, with Ram Jie's arrogant and domineering personality, Lin Yi's intuition told him that he should not be the type of person who liked to play tricks. If he wanted to deal with him, there was no need for him to take such a big detour, and even use such a sensitive person as Shanghai Laner to make an issue. Chapter 40-42. If he could reason with him and move him emotionally, he might be able to fight for a chance to escape when Ram Jie questioned him. However, Lin Yi soon discovered that he had thought of all this too simply. After he was caught, he was directly locked in the dungeon, and Ram Jie did not show up from the beginning to the end, nor did he give him any chance to speak. Being locked in the cold and dark dungeon without any response, Lin Yi was completely helpless. In the past, when Shanghai Laner was still here, he could still be rescued if he was locked in, but now that Shangguan Laner was missing, he could not even protect himself. Who would come to help him? As for senior brother Ku Bai and the others, their weight was simply not enough. They could not even enter the dungeon, let alone be of any help. Just when Lin Yi was at a loss of what to do, the dungeon door suddenly opened, and a burst of dense footsteps approached from afar, stopping only when they reached the door of his dungeon. Lin Yi could not help but secretly speculate in his heart. Looking at this posture, could it be that Ram Jia was finally ready to interrogate him? At this moment, not far from the door, an old but dignified voice sounded. "Open the door, all of you go out. This old man wants to see him alone." Laney was slightly stunned until he saw the face of the person who came, and was immediately shocked. Although the other party was only wearing an extremely ordinary yellow robe, and at first glance, he was just an ordinary old man, but the aura that was revealed from his every movement was inexplicably awe-inspiring, and even could not help but give birth to a trace of the impulse to surrender. The person who came was actually Shangguan Laner's grandfather, Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master, Shanghai Tianhua. Shangguan Tianhua swept his gaze across the prison cell. It was filled with filthy and smelly things. There were even all sorts of venomous snakes and venomous insects entrenched in them. He smiled faintly and said, "After so many years, this brat Gong Yangjie still likes to do this. I wonder where he got so many venomous creatures." After saying that, Shanghai Tianhua used his feet to clear away a pile of moldy straw. There were also a few venomous snakes entrenched on it. They sat on the ground without a care, and waved at Lin Yi. "Don't just stand there. Sit down and talk." This was not the first time that Lin Yi had seen Shanghai Tianhua. But compared to the high and mighty image of the big shot at the birthday party last time, the one in front of him he had clearly changed into another kind of temperament, a kind of amiable temperament like that of an old man next door. The pressure from before had also disappeared in an instant. Lin Yi stared blankly for a long while before he walked over and respectfully greeted. "This disciple is Lin Yi. Greetings, Pavilion Master Shangguan." Shanghai Tianhua nodded and gestured for Lin Yi to sit down before saying, "At the last birthday party, I still remember that you gave little Lan, or 2 supreme-grade foundation building pills. As a newcomer, you gave such a precious gift. You are very thoughtful. I thank you on behalf of little Lan. Pavilion Master Shangguan is too kind. Little senior sister has taken good care of this disciple. Giving her a little gift to express my sincerity is what I should do." Lin Yi had already calmed down and restored his usual calm composure. Shanghai Tianhua couldn't help but secretly look up to Lin Yi. With his status and strength, not to mention a mere newcomer, even the higher-ups of the 3 pavilions would tremble in front of him. But this Lin Yi could recover in such a short time. He was really a heroic youth. Shanghai Tianhua had always had a unique eye for people. Simple words and actions were enough to see a person's background and talent in his eyes. "As far as this old man knows, you are a newcomer in Blue Cloud Pavilion, and little Lan has never been to the Welcome Pavilion. There shouldn't be any interaction between the two of you. How did you get to know her?" Shanghai Tianhua didn't directly ask about Shangguan Laner's disappearance. Instead, he asked in a casual tone, without the air of a high and mighty pavilion master. "Was he testing me to see if I had any intentions?" Lin Yi didn't relax in the slightest. He immediately replied truthfully, "The first time I met little senior sister was actually because of the little curly bear. It sneaked out and happened to be met by this disciple. At that time, I didn't know why it was injured. In the end, little senior sister misunderstood that this disciple kidnapped it. Haha, little Honor is simple. No matter what she does, she takes it for granted. Little White is her heart, so it's normal for you to be misunderstood by her. Because of Little White, this old man has been misunderstood and blamed by her." Shanghai Tianhua laughed heartily. Even in this gloomy and cold dungeon where no daylight could be seen, sitting next to him still felt like a spring breeze caressing one's face. It made one unconsciously trust and feel close to him. Could this be the legendary personal charm? Lin Yi was secretly shocked. With the growth of his strength and vision, he now gradually looked at people differently from before. In the past, he looked at external strength, but now he paid more attention to internal strength. A truly powerful person must be able to intimidate the common people from the inside out. This point could be confirmed by many great figures. The pavilion master of Soaring Sky Pavilion in front of him was a clear proof. Last time, during the birthday banquet, little Lanner said that Su Lingchong had ill intentions towards her. But in the end, his manhood was cut off by Little Bai in a drunken frenzy state. You should have played a part in that, right? Shangguan Tianhua asked meaningfully. As a grandfather, he didn't ask Shangguan Laner about this matter from beginning to end. The information he knew was limited to the confession that Shangguan Laner said in the law enforcement hall. However, these matters, even if he didn't openly ask, he could still easily deduce. After all, at that time, when Linny followed Shangguan Laner upstairs, this was something that many people saw. Linny didn't deny it. He nodded and said, "That's right. At that time, the situation was urgent and I couldn't care too much. I could only choose to attack Su Lingchong. Fortunately, he didn't succeed. With your strength, it's really hard for you to be able to restrain Su Lingchong, who is at the great perfection of foundation establishment." Shanghai Tianhua smiled and suddenly asked, "Then do you like little Lan Er?" Huh. Linny was immediately stunned to suddenly ask such an abrupt question, and the other party was the dignified pavilion master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. No matter how he thought about it, this situation was a little strange. After a moment, under the gaze of Shanghai Tianhua, Linny answered truthfully, "About this, I do indeed have a slight feeling. But before I came to Heaven Stage Island, I already had a girlfriend. Moreover, more than one." When faced with this answer, Linny originally thought that the pavilion master would burst into a rage. After all, Shanghai Laner was the pavilion master's beloved daughter. Just based on their identities, they were already completely incompatible. Not to mention that he had so many confidants. If it was any other parent, they would probably ask him to stay away from his granddaughter. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.